All right, we are going to get started with our general meeting today, and then move on to the zoning docket after that. So the things that we have to do today are 5 extension requests, and they should be in tab 4 in front of you. So I will just go in order. They're all pretty straightforward, I believe. So the first one that's in my binder is 2020-229, 1129 Monroe Circle. This is a third extension request. So this originally was an application that approved the construction of one 6-unit multifamily dwelling and one 2-unit multifamily dwelling. So they've gotten 2 extensions from this initial approval. They have started work on the 2-unit multifamily dwelling, but the 6-unit multifamily dwelling has not begun yet. The reason that building hasn't begun is because there's a BGE utility pole in the way that needed to be moved, and this caused some substantial delays according to the extension request, but the relocation will occur within the next month as of when they wrote this, and they anticipate an issued building permit by the end of May. They submitted this April 22nd. Let's see. So looks like they're going to start working on that second building within the next month or so, if they haven't already started. But they are requesting a final, I'm assuming it's final, they didn't say final, requesting a 12-month extension for this approval.
Yeah, I would say 6 months, but there's no guarantee that any of this will kick off the way it's supposed to, so I have no objection.
No objections.
No objections.
No objection.
Okay, so that was no objection to a 12-month extension then? Okay. All right, moving along to the next one. 2021-215, 3317 to 3323 West Belvedere Avenue. 1 second. This is a second extension request. This was an application for an off-street parking variance to construct an addition to an existing building. They have submitted their building permit application. They anticipate the approval of that permit within the next month. Again, this was sent last month, so hopefully that is happening now. They're asking for a second extension of 12 months.
Let's see. We can't vote with 3, right? We need 4?
Yeah. You need 4.
Let's see. So they don't have a building permit. We don't have a date by which they submitted the,
It says they've submitted their building permit application and anticipate its approval and issuance within the next month. They anticipate breaking ground this summer, it says.
okay. I don't have an objection.
No objection.
No objections.
No objection.
All right, moving right along. This is 2022-448. They're requesting a 6-month extension. This is the first extension request. The board approved a conditional use for a child daycare center. They needed to install a fire alarm system. The fire inspector visited the property in March and said that they needed different drawings before the alarm system could be approved, and there's a backlog at the fire inspector's office. So the applicant is waiting for a second inspection, it looks like, from the fire inspector. So again, they're asking for a 6-month extension. This is their first request.
I have no objection. 6 months.
Also no objection.
No objection.
No objection.
Okay. 2023-038. I don't see the address on here. Hold on just a second. Let me look up this property. Oh, sorry, I have it in the notes. 401 North Gay Street. Let's see. It doesn't say what the original approval was for. It's for a conditional use, but I don't have it in my notes about what kind of conditional use it was. Anyway, they were not able to obtain their use and occupancy within 1 year. They're working through design, construction, pricing, and financing. Fundraising is taking longer than anticipated. They're focusing their efforts on securing financing and requesting an extension of this approval for, I'm going to assume, 12 months. Is there anything you need to know other than that?
You said this was their first request?
It is their first request.
I have an objection.
I don't have no objections.
Let him do it.
No objections.
Okay,
No objection.
all righty. So that's a 12-month extension. And the last one, I believe, yes. It's also a first extension request. This was for an addition to an existing synagogue that the board approved last year. The addition will house ritual baths for use with the synagogue. The project has been delayed due to the complexity of the plans. Each bath requires multiple pools of rainwater, an intricate roof structure to collect the rainwater, specialized concrete work to ensure waterproofing and drainage. The synagogue building itself is 82 years old and has presented some challenges for the preparation of their plans. But they did finalize the plans. They have applied for the building permit, but it hasn't been issued yet. So they're asking for 12 months. This is their first request.
I don't have an objection.
No objections.
I also have any objections.
Okay.
No objection.
All right. So, let's see here. If there's anything I need to say before we get into the docket. I want to take a, could you grab the sign-in sheet so we can see who was here in opposition? Okay. All right, so far, just 2024-61 has opposition. We did get opposition for 2023-219 in writing, as well as 2024-58. But those people haven't shown up, so. I'll leave it to the chair of whether we want to take things out of order or in order for the docket, but I don't think I have anything else to bring up before we get to the zoning docket.
Let's go in order.
Okay, let's go in order. All right. All right, I think that's it. So I will pull up my little script here and we can start our zoning docket. All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the 1 p.m. docket for the Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals. My name is Becky Witt. I'm the Executive Director for the BMZA. Left to right here, we have Victor Clark. Normally, we have Leland Shelton. My notes are in a certain order, and you just sat in the wrong spot. James Fields is the chair, David Marcosi, and then Leland Shelton here on the right. To my left is Jim Allman, who's the Assistant Counsel to the Board, and across from me is the court reporter who will swear you in if you're going to testify today. Please silence your cell phones. If you need to have a private conversation with somebody, please do so out in the lobby. When it's your turn to speak, please identify yourself and spell your name for the court reporter and be sworn in to testify. If you haven't already signed in on the sign-in sheet and you plan to speak today on any matter, please sign in now. Everyone who wants to speak should sign in, including attorneys, applicants, etc. The board's vote today on your case does not make our decision final. We're required to issue our decision in writing in a document called the resolution. That is what I missed, the draft resolutions. We'll come back to that in a second. Which is a process that takes several weeks. The resolution needs to be drafted and then reviewed and approved by the board, and we will send them to you via email. If you're unhappy with the outcome of your case, you have the right to request reconsideration of the board's decision within 10 business days of the issuance of the resolution, and you also have the right to appeal the board's decision to the circuit court within 30 calendar days of the issuance of the resolution. If the board approves your appeal today, you have 1 year from the date of your resolution to either get your use permit in the case of a conditional use appeal or pull your construction permit in the case of a variance and start substantial construction. If you need more time than 1 year, you have to request an extension before the year lapses, and the board will consider your request based on the information that you provide and whether there is sufficient good cause for an extension. So let's circle back to the draft resolutions really quickly, now that I remembered that we have to do it. Those should be quick. So those are under tab 5, and I'll go just in the order that I have them here. 2024-12, 4515 Bowleys Lane was a request to construct a 2-story addition to an existing building, increasing the occupancy, which required conditional use approval and variances. The board heard a lot about the uniqueness of this property with respect to the variances, as well as the public health and safety concerns related to the conditional use. The board ended up approving both the variances and the conditional use for this residential care facility. I'm just going to keep going. 2024-048, 4003 Borman Avenue was a request to use the premises as a multifamily dwelling with 2 dwelling units requiring confirmation of nonconforming density, and the board approved this request based on the zoning history of this property as 2 dwelling units. 2024-042, 4805 Nelson Avenue was a request to use a portion of the premises as a daycare center. The board went through the conditional use approval standards and approved this request. In this case, there was some opposition relating to parking, but the board found that the issues relating to parking at this location would not be more harmful than they would be at other locations for a child care center. 2023-128, 3400 Mount Pleasant Avenue was a request to use a portion of the ground floor as a retail goods establishment, which required conditional use approval under the neighborhood commercial standards. The request was to sell retail goods, clothing and equipment for construction workers, and the board approved this use. There was no opposition in that case. 3100 East Baltimore Street, 2023-074 was a request to essentially add outdoor seating to an existing restaurant in an R8 residential zoning district. The board evaluated the application under the conditional use approval standards and approved this request. There's also no opposition in that matter. 2024-022, 2709 Jefferson. This was a request to use the premises as a multifamily dwelling with 2 dwelling units, which would require lot area and off-street parking variances. The board denied this request due to the board couldn't find uniqueness, essentially, in this property, and therefore denied the request to use the property as 2 dwelling units. 2023-052, 4413 Frederick Avenue was a request to use a portion of the ground floor as a daycare center. There are a lot of daycare centers that day. And the board heard all the evidence and decided under the conditional use standards that a daycare center at this location would not be more harmful to neighbors than a daycare center anywhere else within the zone, and so therefore approved the daycare center use. 2024-053 043, 2301 Whittier Avenue was a request to use the premises as a multifamily dwelling with 3 dwelling units requiring confirmation of nonconforming density. And the board found that the last legal use of the property was for 5 dwelling units, and this applicant was asking for 3. And so the board approved this request for 3 dwelling units as nonconforming existing density. 2024-027, 3711 Beeler Avenue was a request to use the premises as a daycare center, requiring conditional use approval. In this case, the board noted that this person has a pickup and drop-off loading zone in front of her home. She is seeking to expand her existing daycare home to a daycare center, which would allow her to go from 8 to 12 children in the home. And the board applied the Schultz test and approved the conditional use for that daycare center request. And those are all the resolutions I have for you. Does anybody have any edits or any changes to any of those resolutions?
None.
No changes.
No change. I vote to approve.
Great.
I'm a yes, approve.
I'm a yes.
Oh, okay, great. Count that as 4 votes to approve the resolutions. I did just remember that Councilwoman Ramos did submit a request for postponement in the case of 2024-61, 3211 Frisbee Street. And she is here, so I just wanted to note that for the board, that she did submit a postponement request, I think, last night. I think it should be in your packet. I added it in, and I can give you a copy of her request. But I'll leave it up to you, Mr. Chair, what you want to do with that request. I can give you a paper copy if you want.
I know she's here. Is she appearing for the purpose of the postponement or another
I
matter?
believe so.
Okay. Thanks. Is the applicant here for 3211 Frisbee?
Yes.
Okay. Can we just put this on the record? Have them come up. If Councilwoman Ramos is here, we can do that too. I would just like to hear from him because it's about them. All right. Let me just call then case number 2024-061, 3211 Frisbee Street. Emil and Shard Wint, the applicants. Come on up. Can anyone check to see if Councilwoman Ramos is outside? I just saw her standing in the doorway.
Yeah, sorry, I thought she was in the room since I saw her too.
She did step out.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Ramos. Why don't you come on up to the podium? I call this case 2024-061, 3211 Frisbee Street. I know that you are requesting a postponement of the
Yes, sir.
hearing in light of, as per your letter, that there have not been, meetings between the applicant and Better Waverly community at this point to consider what's happening. That's why I called you up. Had you had an opportunity to talk to Councilwoman Ramos earlier today?
Not today. Only time I was only informed of this. I was only informed of this as of yesterday, 8 o'clock in the morning by email from Councilwoman Ramos and CCing on the Baltimore Better Waverly Community Organization. I did attempt to follow their instructions and look on their website to find out when their meetings were happening. So based on their website, it does indicate that it happens every second Tuesday of every month. I did go to the location where they provided, but no one was there. So since I put the notice on the property, I did make attempts to go to see about the community, but this was to answer your question.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chair, if I might, admittedly, when the notice was put on the property and residents were asking, that's when it made sense to try to at least be able to have a meeting with them. So I recognize that they, did try to reach out. And I think that there's just some questions that I think residents have that I think can be answered. And my intent is not to stop this from happening. It's really just to try to have a conversation. It is true that sometimes it's difficult to get a hold of the community association, so I'll acknowledge that as well. And I think, once we have the conversation, it shouldn't be an issue.
Sure. So, I mean, given that it's conditional use, it's one of the things we often try to encourage is that the applicants, if you're bringing a new or proposed or potential business to the community, that at least as many folks who have an interest in that know about it, so that any issues can be hashed out. And I appreciate your efforts to reach out to them. That said, would you be amenable to postponing this matter now to have this discussion? And I'll say this. It is impactful what the community has to say about a given project. That's why we, if you hadn't reached out or nobody had, we would encourage you to do that before it comes before us. Because what we don't want is you to come before us and those things haven't happened, and then the result may not be as positive as we wanted to. Is there any opportunity, Ms. Witt, do you think, to get them on next docket?
Sure. Yeah, June 4th would work, which is 2 weeks.
Our concern is, when is their next meeting? Like, how would this be coordinated? Because as my husband has mentioned,
Sure.
we have made a previous attempt.
Yep, great question. I will facilitate that, and it won't necessarily be at that same meeting time, but I'll be gathering residents in the area together and bring the community association in. So I will facilitate it and make sure it happens.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Yep, absolutely.
And that's the best we're ever going to get, particularly from this council person. So that will happen. So we thank you for that.
So June 4th
June
then.
4th?
June 4th? Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
We
Wait.
are out of the country.
So,
We have to confirm because
Sure.
I appreciate your indulgence, Mr. Chair. And again, I want to acknowledge that they did make the effort. I just want to make sure that we get it done and come back to you with
Hey, great.
a good outcome.
Yeah, if it happens between regular scheduled meetings, is what it is.
Yeah, no, I'm going to take full responsibility to make that happen. Yep.
Great.
yes.
Does that work for you?
That date works. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So with respect to the postponement request, collectively, I'm a yes. As the postponement request.
We'll set a date right now so that you're confident that that it's moving forward.
so then just go ahead and update the existing sign with the new date, the June 4th date.
Okay.
You can just, as long as it's legible, you could just cross out the old date and write June 4th next to it.
All right, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I
right, thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Okay, speed.
Hold on one second, guys. I need your name for the record.
Were you finished? I don't know if you were. When we pulled up the
I
postponement.
did, yep, I went through and then we circled back to the resolutions and now we're ready to start, yeah.
Okay,
Your schedule, 219.
At the top, yep.
all right. Calling case number. We could silence all phones. Good. Calling case number 2023-219, 136 West 25th Street. The appellant is All TRD LLC. It's like represented by Mr. Hurdle. Fine, sir. And this is a request to add accessory live entertainment to the tavern first floor requiring conditional use approval. Is that correct, Mr. Hurdle?
That's correct, and I do believe I forgot to sign in violation of the rules.
That's okay.
Well, I might have to have you take a seat in the back.
Sorry.
Can you turn on your microphone though, please?
Abraham Hurdle, HURDLE, on behalf of the applicant at 136 West 25th Street.
All right. Let's just get the party sworn.
Oh, yeah.
Do you swear or affirm under the family of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you're making is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, I'll hear from staff and planning.
All right, so the request is to add accessory live entertainment to an existing tavern, which requires conditional use approval. And
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 second. The opposition is in writing, right? Just the letters? There's no
the
live opposition here?
letters, yes, I
Just want to be
don't,
sure there's nobody else we needed to swear.
I don't believe so. I don't
Okay.
think there's anyone here.
Sir?
I'm in support.
And I apologize, there's probably 5 or 6 people here that are in support, and we can get to them shortly. I assume we'll have them stand up.
Okay, I would like them all sworn
Wonderful.
to the extent they potentially might testify. You have a seat. It's fine. Close by.
Okay, so as the chair just noted, there is a letter of opposition from the Charlesville Village Civic Association. There are also some late-breaking support letters from, well, one was submitted a while ago from the Greater Remington Improvement Association, then they sent a follow-up letter of support, and a handful of other letters of support from nearby neighbors. So that's, I'm sure that the parties will get into that a little bit more, but that's where we are, and I'll let Eric give his report.
So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Eric Tiso, last name is Tiso for the Department of Planning. Generally, the proposal as described appears reasonable to us and will allow for further investment in the building, which we generally support. I was advised by our community planner for the district that we were aware of the letter of opposition at the time we wrote our report, that there may be additional details that they might want to resolve. So we were suggesting a postponement to accommodate that if that has not happened at this point in time. Since then, they seem to have some support present, so we'll leave that up to you to decide.
Very well. Mr. Hurdle.
Thank you.
Have you reviewed the letters of opposition?
I believe it's just one letter of opposition,
Oh,
correct? From
Charlesville.
this, was it CVCA?
Yeah, correct.
Correct.
You're
We met
familiar with those
them.
issues?
Yeah, we
All
met
right.
with them, and I'd be happy to address everything,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. Go ahead,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you. My clients are an existing and operating tavern. There's an echo, sorry. At 136 West 25th Street. I want to make sure that we understand the location so we get an idea what we're doing. This is not a big space. I think it's probably.
Slide a little further back, it's got to be.
There we go, maybe. The space as a whole is probably half the size of this room, maybe bigger or smaller. The capacity is 38 people. It's tiny.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Can we just shut that door all the way? Thank you.
So my clients are looking to add live entertainment, but we're not looking to have Metallica play by any means. This is not going to be a nightclub. It's not going to be one of these pseudo nightclubs or lounges. My clients live in the apartment above the tavern. It's a 2-story building.
There's a basement.
There is a basement, but the basement is unutilized in regard to this situation. So the first floor is this tavern that's been there for a long time. They took over a couple years ago and started operating about a year ago. And they're looking to add live entertainment, mostly for ambiance and just as support for some of their activities. They like to support a lot of local artists, whether it's, again, musicians and other parties. It's very much a small local place. So given the capacity having live entertainment is actually going to reduce their capacity by a handful of people, because if there's a three-piece band in there, they're down to 35. And the people who are typically working is going to be Miss Alex, who's sitting to my right, or Mr. Andrew, who couldn't be here today. And Andrew did provide me a letter. I think it made it into the file, and if not, I have copies of it. Andrew's a doctor, and something came up last minute and unfortunately couldn't be here. They own the whole building. Some of the concerns that we had when we talked to the Charles Village Association was it seemed to focus on two issues. One of them I thought was somewhat reasonable, and one of them I thought was maybe not so reasonable, personally. The reasonable concern was that the facade was rough. They've been in there, they've been doing a lot of renovations. The facade is admittedly not ideal. Since that meeting, they've spent significant time resolving that issue, and they've also applied for a community facade improvement grant, which I think has been filed. We've been assured that it looks good, but hasn't necessarily been issued at this time. But things are looking positive. There's also a letter from Baltimore Community Lending, which I believe is the bank behind the project. And they wrote a letter of support as well. It did make it in. I have copies of, I think, most of this stuff I can give to you guys. So we have significant support locally. We have support from GRIA as well, which is the local community association. They wrote, I believe, 2 letters of support. The Old Goucher Association also wrote a letter of support. And we've met with numerous community associations in regards to this project. The other concern that the CVCA seemed to have was around how money's going to be made, or what are the finances behind everything. And they own the whole property and they live in there. And I think maybe unfortunate to some people who are buying houses today, they got it a couple years ago, so things were more favorable in any number of ways. The numbers work for them. I don't really want to go into it. I find that the financing side and the costs and economics of it are somewhat invasive. The business is there to make money. It is
Some would
doing
say it's
well.
none of their business, right?
I would not be so bold, but that was,
No, it comes up, and it has, and I'm nothing shy about suggesting to that party. that
this isn't a place
once
where
it's
they
a
have a $50,000 lease they have to carry, and therefore may operate in a way that isn't great to carry that lease. This is a place where it runs fine. They're not even necessarily open every single day of the week, and they don't plan, again, to have large acts or significant music. They have hosted any number of events for small charities and fundraisers for artists in the area, and they've been very successful. One of the letters that we received was a handful of those groups signing off. One of them's Hamden Elementary, Charm City Care Connection, Birds of Baltimore Forest Program Manager. The Charles Village Chess Club hosts a weekly chess night, I believe. Is it monthly or weekly?
Weekly.
Weekly
Every
chess
Friday.
club night every Friday. So.
Andrew's here to support you.
And one of those individuals is here to support us. I mean, their Friday night is chess club. It's not a DJ lounge environment. This is not going to be a problem location. Live entertainment is not going to bring in more parking. It's not going to bring in more trouble. Again, the quantity of people there, I think, dramatically affects the concerns that they may encounter in the area. And ultimately, when we were meeting the other day to talk about this, it isn't a private club, but it's kind of one of those places where you kind of got to know about it or have known someone who's been there, because it's so cozy. So it's not a situation where it's going to draw 200 people off the street because someone's coming on Friday. It's going to draw 10 or 25,
Let me ask you about the occupancy very
Please.
quickly. In the application, my understanding is the occupancy is 75 people per floor.
I was actually incorrect about that. I was
Okay.
surprised because I thought it was, I've actually been to this space, but it's been a few years. And when I went, I was, what's the term before under the weather? I had a bigger view of the space when I went 5 or 6 years ago, I think. So when they told me it was 38, I kind of, again, for me, if it's 200 people, that's potentially a concern. Need to have security. Do you have 5 or 10 on a Friday? Here, the question is, and it isn't a matter of they're only letting people in that they know, but in a way, the only people that are coming are people they know, if that makes sense.
Well, you're not doing a mass marketing program to draw in 300 people when you have space for 38, right?
And again, every time there's someone playing music, that's one person who's effectively not a paying patron at the location. Their hours right now are unrestricted. They have a 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. license. I would ask Alex to speak to the hours. I don't believe that they're open till 2 a.m. most days, if ever.
Your application suggests that the live entertainment would go to 1
I don't,
at the latest? Okay. With the, I guess, comparatively limited number of people or occupancy, being at that number, do you believe there's a need for any security during your
we've
live
talked
events?
about it because I always think it's nice to have it. In the event anything ever becomes a concern, one of the nice things about it being such an, again, I don't want to make it sound like it's a private clubhouse, because it's not. It really isn't.
You're heading there.
But the benefit of having such a small crowd is that a lot of the people who are there have kind of been there. So everyone's friends in some way. So if someone starts acting
Everybody has an
improperly-
incentive to let anything get out of hand.
Exactly. It's almost, yeah, that's exactly how I would describe it, is that it's, please.
If I may say.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are basically operating. Chess Club is our long-standing standing client. They come every Friday night, and the place is open between 6 p.m. to 2
I
a.m.
know that's a rowdy crowd, right?
Yeah,
Just-
very rowdy crowd. Yes, and other than that, we open for the events whenever people wanna organize events, and that basically means that whoever is the organizer has a crowd that they're inviting to come to the space. Another thing is that when I look at our returning customers, there's usually at least 50% to 75% of the people who are coming, they every time for the events or for the chess night, those are returning customers. So I just want to say that there is a certain kind of a group that is being built of people who frequently come to the space, and definitely we are growing the space. So there's definitely, our goal is definitely to be open more often. But at the moment, it's certainly more of a word of mouth and people who often frequent the space.
Well, let me ask you, have you gotten or had occasion to have events in the past where you needed to get a special permit?
No, we
for an
haven't
event?
done that because it's been stated that all we could do is just play music, on the computer. There was no
We've been very
There was
careful to
no-
follow
yeah.
the rules.
We've only had birthday parties or wedding after parties or art collectives come through, just put some art on the wall, but nothing in terms of the live entertainment going on.
And any of those events, can you recall any particular issues that were negative that
No.
resulted as a result?
No, we didn't have any incidences, none.
Okay.
And with regards to the CVCA's concerns, we're happy to engage with them. Our concern is that they would like us to sign an MOU, which we think may be restrictive given the circumstances and the other community support we have. We'll continue to engage with them with regards to the facade going forward to make sure that whatever we're planning, they're happy with. It's just a circumstance where the meeting wasn't as positive as we had anticipated it going. And it's one of the reasons we didn't re-engage with them and chose to continue engaging with other community associations.
Okay.
But again, they both work in the area, they both live above the location. They plan to be active in the community and have been and will continue to be so.
I have a question for you, Ms. Witt. I know it's in the letter and, it's designed to serve their interests, but there's a statement in there that says, "We stress that the CVCA requires a community agreement with operators of active establishments with liquor licenses." And maybe community associations speak, there's no requirement under the law for that. Is that correct?
No, there's no requirement. I think maybe, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but it seems like they would require it in order to have their support.
Right.
which is
Withdraw. I
not
got it.
necessarily required for this board.
And just so the board knows as well, we're going to have to reapply for live entertainment as an addition to the liquor license at some point. So the CVCA will have a chance to reengage, or we'll have a chance to reengage, and they'll get a chance to have their complaints heard a second time
Right. Yeah,
in
we've
the
been
event they
there.
need to be.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
No questions.
Okay. Appreciate you guys being here. Don't think we need the additional testimony at this point. Anything else, Mr. Hurdle?
Just that I've been working with these clients for a couple of years. They seem very dedicated to the space and to the community. I think they're going to do a great job. I think the small size of the space really helps any number of the kind of wild card factors that are normally an issue in these circumstances.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, if I can ask to get a couple names.
Absolutely.
Can you state some of your names?
Alexandra Mikhailovich, Alexandra
You, and then, sir, you had spoken from the back.
Oh, sorry, Corey Jennings, CORUIJENNINGS.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're here on the conditional use approval for live entertainment at this location. According to the application and the testimony, the live entertainment would run until 1 a.m. At the latest. Sound would be kept between 40 and 80 decibels. And we appreciate the description of the venue capacity, the adjustment from the application to the testimony, that as opposed to 75 being the capacity, it's really 38, which is a smaller crowd. So presumably, speakers wouldn't have to be turned up as high even for that. But just go right to the elements. And I also appreciate in your application your answering of the factual questions, which is impactful for what we have to decide. Would the establishment, location, construction, maintenance, or operation of this particular conditional use be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare? I don't believe the record supports that. In any event, it is a club or a venue that caters to literally a smaller crowd. It's been around, it's been in existence for a while. The owners and operators are on site. There's not been a history of any problems associated with any past events. Would not seem to be any reason to believe there'd be any concern, certainly affecting the public health, safety, or welfare. I'm not persuaded that the CVCA letter suggests any such concerns. It's more about the facade and maybe the internal workings of the establishment, to which, you're not entitled to know everything about what everybody's doing. So I think that there is no detriment that's demonstrated on the record. Would the conditional use be precluded by any other law, including an applicable urban renewal plan? No. There's no other legal preclusion of it. Would it be contrary? Would the authorization of this use be contrary to the public interest? I don't believe so. I think it might bring a few more people together, have an opportunity to commune and fellowship. Would the authorization be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code? I think so. This is, I think, the kind of use for which conditional use approvals are made. If you have uses like this that have a history and a greater potential to sort of get out of hand and create problems, I don't see that on the record with regard to this application. And also under the Schultz v. Pritz standard, would this particular use of live entertainment at this location have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with such a use, live entertainment, anywhere else within this zone? I don't believe. I think the answer is no. And so for those reasons, I'm a yes for this conditional use application.
I'm also a yes.
I'm a yes.
I just have one question.
Please.
Was the community association made aware of your application for the facade grant?
I don't,
I can speak to that.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, somewhere in the conversation,
I can
Yeah,
speak to
Corey,
that.
go ahead.
So I'm Corey Jennings, the president of the Greater Remington Improvement Association, and the facade grant runs through the Greater Remington Improvement Association as a program. So they applied to us for that facade grant. So we are the community association or one of them that represents this property.
okay, but the one in opposition where
I
they
don't
made,
believe that CVCA is aware as of today of
because that seems to be one of their complaints.
Correct, and that's one of the reasons we sought out the grant in large part. Correct.
I think you got ahead of the curve. I'm in agreement.
Okay, thanks so much. Good luck.
Thank you, may we be excused?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Case number 2024 -025, 4500 Hartford Road, Hamilton Laurelville Main Street LLC. The applicant.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. This is a request to use the premises as a community center requiring conditional use approval, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Anyone else here on your behalf?
I don't believe anyone's here on my behalf. There are several letters of support in the
Okay,
record.
great. So let's get the party sworn.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give on the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you state and spell your full name for the record?
It's Daniel Doty, D-O-T-Y. I'm the executive director of Hamilton Laurelville Main Street.
Great, thank you.
I'll hear from staff and planning.
All right, the request is to use the premises as a community center, which requires conditional use approval. This is C1 zoning district, so no parking is required here. And like Mr. Doty said, they do have letters of support from several community associations in the vicinity.
And for planning, we're here in support, and for those that may not be aware, I believe this is the Laurelville Farmers Market location that is upgrading. And just by way of correction, I had listed parking requirements in our staff report missing, and it's C1, so parking is not required, but in any case, we're recommending approval.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Tiso. All right, sir, I'll hear from you.
Hi. So, as briefly described, we have an area that at one time was a gas station that was abandoned in the 1990s. We have been holding the Laurelville Farmers Market for many years there, having negotiated a long-term lease with the city on the property. Over the years, we've done several different things, and most recently, starting a couple years ago, we began to use this space to focus more on the community gathering elements of this, as well as on helping our neighborhood entrepreneurs grow and thrive. And as part of that, with several different grants, including a state capital grant, a state Department of Housing and Community Development, Community Safety Works grant, Chesapeake Bay Trust grant, we have taken up all of the old islands and pretty much as much asphalt and concrete as we could. We have planted quite a bit of native plants. We're continuing to plant more this spring. And we have taken what was this absolutely atrocious husk, if you will, of what once was a gas station with 3 garage bays and turned it into an absolutely gorgeous building that is all enclosed and we would like to begin to use, instead of simply for our own things, we would like to be able to have community members, community groups have access to a space that they can put on their own events. And in fact, in anticipation, hoping that I haven't jinxed it, I have actually hired a woman last week that lives 2 blocks from this area who will be coordinating with community members in order to help facilitate that.
Okay, is this set up across from the Safeway?
It is. It is.
I was going to volunteer my services because some of us get called to go to the store every 10 minutes, it seems. So, okay. And I think I've seen some improvements associated with that building. It looks like it's enclosed. It looks like there's even seating and like meeting areas on the inside.
It's enclosed. There's a small conference room. There's a great big room. I think we bought 60 chairs to fit in, yes. And then
Hold on.
having helped out at those markets for many years, there are 2 bathrooms instead of porta potties, and it's a great space. And Bliss Meadows, which is backyard base camp, they are in a neighboring area, run an absolutely amazing program, including an urban farm. They are actually have taken over our markets. So it will be moved from Tuesdays to Thursdays, and it will be the Main Street Market. So please stop by.
Awesome, awesome, okay. Any questions for the applicant?
No questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Here on the conditional use approval request for the premises are operated as a community center. Based on the application and the supporting testimony, the site would provide social services to local neighborhood residents, continue the operation of existing farmers market, one which I've sort of seen in action personally. Based on the record before us, it does not appear, and I don't see any reason to believe, that the maintenance and operation of this conditional use would be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. I think it's quite the opposite. The conditional use is not precluded by any other law, including an urban renewal plan. The authorization for the conditional use would not be contrary to the public interest. I think it would be in furtherance of the public interest to grant it. And the authorization, I also believe, is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code. And pursuant to Schultz v. Pritz, I do not see in the record that the particular use proposed at this location would have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with this type of use anywhere else in this location within the zone. So I'm a yes for this application.
I'm also a yes.
I'm a yes.
Very well. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, members of the board.
See you on Thursdays.
Week after next.
They get me out of the store anyway, for sure. Calling case number 2024-026, 3900 Roland Avenue. Josh Minty. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. This is a request to use a portion of the premises as a restaurant with outdoor seating, requiring conditional use approval, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's get Ms. Minty sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm on the telling partner that the answers that you give and statements that you make is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, I'll hear from staff and planning.
All right, so this one was, if you recall, rescheduled from a few weeks ago due to a sign issue, but we are back and the sign was properly posted. So this is a request to use the premises as a restaurant with outdoor seating. Both require conditional use approval. This is located in R6 residential zoning district. So these two uses are permissible as neighborhood commercial establishments. The property was previously used as a church, obviously. So it qualifies as a neighborhood commercial establishment because there's a history of non-residential use. The property has only ever been used for non-residential purposes. They propose, I believe, 16 off-street parking spaces, although I thought I saw a letter that said 20, so maybe that could be clarified. Just one issue for the board to think about is that neighborhood commercial establishments have to be pedestrian-oriented and not oriented to the automobile. Just looking at the site plan here, kind of facing away from the street, but that is something that could be addressed as well. 2 letters of support, one from the Hamden Community Association, one from Councilwoman Ramos, and 2 letters of opposition in the file as well, mostly relating to parking and traffic, I guess, are the opposition. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
So from planning's perspective, the neighborhood commercial establishment as a category was created under the current zoning code when it was new in 2017, precisely because a lot of structures like this that are non-residential in neighborhoods were non-conforming, and rampantly so all over our neighborhoods, and every time they needed to change, they had the difficulty of demonstrating how they could still have that non-conforming use. So we want to provide a conditional use instead to keep these structures in productive use with a limited palette of uses. And so that's why you see these categories coming forward. So this is precisely the use case that we had in mind. For the off-street parking area, if you're providing 5 or more spaces or reconfiguring it, it triggers site plan review. So I would end up seeing those in the process anyway. And with the outdoor table service plan, we usually take a look at that as well. So we have no objection to the appeal, subject to planning's approval of the proposed outdoor seating area and changes to the off-street parking area.
Thank you, Mr. Tisa. Okay, Mr. Menti, tell us about your project.
Well, thank you for taking the time to consider our application for the neighborhood commercial use variance, 3900 Roland Avenue. We certainly feel the property, specifically the chapel portion of it, it is about 16,000 square feet of total space. The chapel itself equates to somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000. Is a great candidate for commercial use based on the criteria as we understand it, which is non-residential in the construction, as he noted. It's a church and a Sunday school that was the back portion constructed in the 60s. Has received prior zoning approval for non-residential use, as evidenced by permits, construction, or historical evidence of lawful non-residential use, which we went back and saw zoning cards. I know I'm duplicating what you're saying, but back as far back as the 1960s, showing everything from approved daycare, office use, up until about 10 years ago, I think it was, or less than 10, but 10 years ago it was approved to be used as Shakespeare Theater. It's obviously a church, so it's kind of always been different than R6. So other supporting factors, we've done the community outreach. It's important to us to make sure that everyone has a say and also, been considered in trying to figure this out. We have supplied letters of support from the HCC, Councilperson Ramos engaged, and we also engaged the neighbor to the south, which is a 14-story high-rise. It's called Somerset Homes. So we had a meeting with them and, addressed some of their concerns, which was more around parking and a couple other things, and we got to a pretty good place with them. I don't have a letter of support, but we did engage with them. The property is actually 1 acre of land, which is pretty unique for Hamden. Because of that and what it is, there is a vast amount of existing parking spaces, somewhere in the 45 space range. There is additional buildings, so we have to kind of figure out how to segregate pieces of it for, say, a use if it gets approved for a restaurant, and then whatever the additional use might end up being. To the north is actually a big cemetery, so it's situated not within traditional housing. It's not like a row home that's attached and there's direct neighbors directly attached to it. It's kind of buffered from the street a little bit, so we feel like it's a pretty good setting to put this type of use together. Parking, we currently have around 45 spots, depending on how you define them. There is a facing Roland Avenue between there and the actual church, there is 15 or 16 spots, depending on how you define it. We have the ability to go in, because there's additional land up there, if we can work with the zoning board and the final approvals of it to expand the parking lot. There may have to be a tree that's removed. There's a lot of different pieces that go with it. But our best guesstimate is we can end up somewhere on the highest end is about 25 spots dedicated to a restaurant. It would be segregated to itself, and this parking lot would be just for the use of this space, which I think is pretty unique for just about any restaurant in Baltimore City, specifically outside of a shopping center or something like that. I can point to other projects that have been well received both by the community and what I believe the city, like Ministry of Brewing in Upper Fells Point, where they preserved the chapel, opened a brewery in there, and then wrapped housing and some offices, I believe, around it. Our goal is to preserve the chapel for everyone to be able to gather and enjoy in a reimagined way, preserving the architecture, stained glass, and details for the general public. restaurant use, we believe, allows universal access to the public as a whole. So based on the unique nature of the building, support from the community, ability to have ample off-street parking, and the prior uses of this property being commercial in nature, I respectively request the city grant our neighborhood commercial use variance request.
Okay. So in terms of, I'll just ask you first, Ms. Britt. Pedestrian oriented, is that defined in our code? Of course it is.
We do have the luxury of having a bus stop directly out front. I don't know if that is pedestrian friendly, but there is a big sidewalk about a block, half a block to a block down from a main intersection in the neighborhood, which is 41st and Roland. I don't know what the definition is, but I would say it's fairly pedestrian friendly.
And you've indicated that it's, I guess, very near to Somerset Homes development?
Correct.
And how tall is that?
14 stories.
Do you know how many units are in that?
Oh, it would
Quite
be
a
just
few.
a guess, 160 maybe, something like that.
Okay. So within walking distance of your restaurant,
Correct.
easily? Nobody would need to drive a car to?
Not
to
from
a
that
facility
building,
from that building.
and within however many blocks people like to walk, there's a vast amount of residents.
What about St. Mary's Roland View Towers? Is that another development? or-
That may be one in the same. Somerset Homes owns it, but I don't know what they actually go by as far as public.
Okay.
And there is another tower directly across the street owned by Somerset Homes, which is another 100+ units in there. And
What do you envision the seating capacity of the restaurant to be?
You know, it really depends on how it gets configured, but just like if you go into any type of worship space, it's really designed to have seating and do it in a way. You know, a kitchen would have to be built out, a bar area, all kinds of different things. But, you know, I would envision it to be less than 200 people as a guess. That's just a straight guess.
Okay. And if you have 20 parking spaces, I doubt that you get 10 people in each vehicle. So, and I'm doing this quick math to conclude in my head anyway, that most of the folks filling the restaurant probably wouldn't be driving there. Maybe they'd be walking there, which suggests to me that might be more pedestrian oriented than not.
Yeah.
Since we don't have a definition, I'm using mine.
Right, of course. It's not suburban in nature, so I think people are used to it. Either Uber, Bird, Lyft, you know, all the other things that kind of go with it. The bus is out front. For overflow parking, a block away is the Rotunda with a 500-car garage that, you know, so potentially even a tenant could secure valet if it was necessary and probably secure parking within that. Again, just hypothetical, but scenario-based.
Off the top of your head, what does the indoor square footage of the restaurant, the public seating area?
Yeah, so the whole space, the chapel itself, which includes a couple of spaces that are tied together to it, meaning like where, and I don't know what it was used for in the past, it could have been the priests, I don't know the right term for it, but where they went and prepped to go, you know. It is somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 square feet, total space for that floor as a raw footprint.
So the code requires 1 parking space per 1,000 square feet of indoor public seating area. So if we said it was 6,000 square feet, technically you're only required to provide 6 parking spaces for that amount of space. So just for the board's knowledge, there's no parking variance needed here. They have quite a bit of parking available.
And actually, I think the math works out better. So if you're only required to have 6 parking spaces and you've got a capacity well in excess of however many, I think that equates to pedestrian-oriented for my purposes. So I'm satisfied. Any questions for the applicant?
I have no questions.
All right. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it, Mr. Mente. And thanks for dealing with the sign issue and the posting. We appreciate you coming back.
Good. Am I finished? Where?
You are, and we have to deliberate, so.
Oh, okay.
we'll hear that.
Sorry, this is my first time in this setting, so.
That's all right. Sit tight, and we'll give you a clue as to what we're going to do in just a second. So we're here on, again, a conditional use for a neighborhood commercial establishment, for a restaurant to operate at this location. We just walked through and heard some numbers as to parking requirements, if any, based on the square footage of this particular operation. And so, based on all that testimony, I would make a specific factual finding that this is pedestrian-oriented establishment and not oriented to the automobile. With that, addressing the conditional use approval standards, I don't believe the establishment, maintenance, or operation of a restaurant at this location would be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare in any way. The conditional use is not precluded by any other law. The authorization would not be contrary to the public interest, and the authorization would be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code. And I would highlight Mr. Tisso's testimony that the category of use that we're looking at here, this is exactly what was intended by the code. Also, I don't believe that this use at this location, or the proposed use at this location, would have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with the operation of a restaurant, irrespective of any other location within the zone. And so I'm a yes for this conditional use request for a neighborhood commercial establishment.
I'm also a yes.
I vote yes.
I am also yes. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good luck to
Thank
you.
you today. I appreciate your time.
All right, take care. Calling case number 2024-046, 4714 Moravia Road, Anishka Forbes. Good afternoon, Ms. Forbes.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosamond Forbes.
Okay, Ms. Forbes, welcome. This is a request to use the premises as a daycare center for 12 children requiring conditional use approval. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. All right, let's get Ms. Forbes sworn.
Do you swear or affirm on the telling for the truth? Thank you. Can you state Rosamond? We have the purpose here.
Name is spelled Rosamon.
We'll hear from staff and planning.
So this is a common type of case that we hear a lot where someone is asking to go from a daycare home to a daycare center. So a daycare home has up to 8 children, a daycare center allows up to 12. That requires conditional use approval in this zoning district, which is R5. Let's see here. They may need to give us a little bit more information on the number of staff on site on peak shift, location of pickup and drop-off zones, location of parking, and exterior lighting.
For planning's report, this is an R5 property with a single-family detached dwelling that's substantially larger than what we typically see for daycares. And in addition, this is also uncommon because there is a parking driveway with about 4 cars capacity plus a 2-car garage at the rear of the property. That we typically don't see parking for staff on premises for very many of these. And in addition, being a corner property with legal parking on both sides and pretty long property boundaries, there's substantial amount of room there for parent drop-off and pickup in a safe manner. They could, of course, approach the parking authority, Baltimore City, if they want to establish a formal pedestrian pickup and loading zone. I'm going to guess that that may not be necessary given the street frontage that they have. That'll be up to them. For a capacity of 12, even as small as that may be, we would be comfortable even if it was slightly larger than that. And so we have no objection.
Wink, wink. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tizzo. Ms. Forbes,
Yes.
can you tell us a little more about the on-site lighting, the other conditions raised by Ms. Witt?
Okay. The property is, of course, completely privacy fenced. There are, of course, some lightings right near the garage at the entrance, at the rear. Lighting around, of course, the front, the ring cameras at the front and the rear. So once the gate is opened, the lighting comes on, so there are automatic lights that come on once any approach is made. It goes directly to the camera so we can see who comes in and out of the property, and no one can actually get in unless it's opened by a staff member.
And how many staff members do you have?
Well, we're only zoned for 8 currently, so it's just, of course, one person and myself, my daughter and myself. But we are looking, once we are getting to the point of the authorization, of course, we're already starting with the interviews for staff members.
So then will you go up to like 3 or 4, do you think, staff members, like including yourself?
Including ourselves, the law just really requires us to have no more than 2, of course, in the education, the different certifications that they do need to have. So that's all we would need at that time because it's only going to be, one person is authorized up to 8. And so if we have 3, that's more than enough, so yes.
Okay. The parking availability that was described by Mr. Tiso, are you currently utilizing those spaces for pickup and drop-off?
Absolutely. So the driveway itself can do, of course, absolutely 4 vehicles. Then there's a 2-car garage that's in front of there. No parking restrictions on either side because you have an apartment building there, an apartment right beside there. So there, some of the parents do walk. So they do walk, from there coming up and just go right into the gate for drop off and pick up.
How long have you been operating the currently existing daycare?
We have been open, I want to say, just a little bit over a year.
And everything's going well?
It's going great. We have a waiting list currently, so that's a great thing. But like I said, we're great because she still lives there. It's just been large families still going to be living there. It's still a private home, and everyone already has their background, everything done, fingerprints and everything. So yes.
Great. Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
What is the lighting conditions? Do you have lights currently on the property?
Oh, absolutely.
Exterior lights?
Yes, so we do have lights, motion sensors. So once anyone comes in, opens, or even pulls up to the garage, the light comes on. We have, of course, all the exit lights, the emergency lights, everything comes on. So when it's needed, so.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Ms. Forbes.
Okay, thank you.
So again, we're here on this case for a conditional use approval for the premise to use the premises as a daycare center, 12 children, based on the presentation and the reports, including specifically the reports from planning. I don't believe the record demonstrates that the operation maintenance of this conditional use would be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. There is a safe place for drop-off and pickup. Lighting conditions are in order. There are cameras associated or situated on the property, all which would indicate a safe condition and not a danger to the public. The conditional use is not precluded by any other law, including any applicable urban renewal plan. The authorization for this conditional use would not be contrary to the public interest. Actually, it would be beneficial because obviously there's need. We've heard testimony that there is a waiting list for the services offered by this establishment. So clearly there's a need for the public. The authorization for this use would be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code. And based on the record before us, I don't believe that this particular use at this location would have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with the operation of a daycare anywhere else within the zone. I'm a yes for this application.
Also yes.
I'm also yes.
All right. Very well. Moving on. Okay, case number 2024-052, 103 Ridgewood Road, Bruce Doak Consulting, LLC. Good afternoon. This is a request to enclose the side entrance requiring variances to bulk regulations approval. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay. So everybody's here. Let's get all the parties, witnesses sworn.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the answers the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Sir, since you already spoke, can you state and spell your full name?
My name is Bruce Doak.
Okay, I'll hear from staff and planning.
All right, I don't think planning has a report for this one. The request is to construct an addition to enclose the side entrance. I believe the only variance needed here is a minimum interior side yard. 15 feet is required, 8 feet is proposed, so it'd be a 7-foot variance. The property is zoned R1C, and I'll leave it there.
Okay. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm representing the O'Briens. The O'Briens have lived here, and they can tell you more. They've lived here for 30 years. They wish to build a very small enclosed entrance to their home on the side of it. And to do that, they need a variance, as was stated. The enclosed area is 6.55 feet deep and 9.25 feet long. It has been designed by an architect in keeping with the architectural style of the house, the neighborhood, and everything. As a part of my application, I submitted elevation renderings and also photographs. The location where the entrance is proposed is a very small, narrow walkway that goes down beside of their house to the rear. On that side of the house are other entrances to the house other than the one they wish to enclose. That area is screened by large, mature shrubs. Therefore, the proposed entrance will not be seen or will not impact the closest neighbor. In keeping with or meeting the requirements of Cromwell v. Ward, this is unique for a couple different reasons. One is that this lot and the location and position of the house has been pushed to the side that we need the variance on because of the topography from Hollywood Lane next door, which would run down the side. So we are the corner of Ridgewood and Hollywood Lane. And like I said, the topography along Hollywood pushes our house towards the side we're needing the variance. This entrance will not be able to be seen from Ridgewood Road for two different reasons. One is the mature shrubs, trees, and everything that are on the subject property along the road, and also the topography. There's a change in elevations between Ridgewood and the side yard. It's our opinion that it would not be detrimental to the adjoining property, nor will it be detrimental to the neighborhood or the surrounding area. My clients can testify that they have spoken to and gained approval from all of their neighbors. One of them is here today and can testify to that if we wish.
Okay. So I understand that the property was built to the side setbacks?
It was.
As built?
Yes, sir.
You're already there. You're saying that the part of the uniqueness goes to the topography of the adjoining property, the adjacent property?
No, if I may, sir, it's approximately 100-foot wide lot, 240 feet deep. It is on the inner corner of Ridgewood and Hollywood. So the topography from the edge of Hollywood, which is on our west, to our subject house is steep, pushing it towards the side, all the way to the side setback on the side we're asking for the variance. That is different than anywhere else in this neighborhood, and especially the properties adjoining this, which have the same size lots.
So you're saying that could you say that again? Because you mentioned that the topography from the street?
Yes, sir. And the setback from that side street pushes the house towards the other side of the property.
And you're saying that that's unique
Yes, sir.
compared to the other properties on the street in the block?
Yes, sir. If you, yeah, the difference in elevation between Hollywood Lane and the house elevation would be approximately 10 feet difference in elevation. The owners can tell you more if you wish concerning this.
Would you say that your adjacent neighbor has the same topographic challenges as your property?
When you say the adjacent, which one?
I want to say it's 101. 101.
And, Mr. Chair, if I can go ahead and ask your name and spell.
Sure.
I'll let my wife speak because this is her.
Did you just speak though?
Yeah, you know, you have to.
Tom O'Brien.
And can you spell O'Brien? Is it I?
O''B''R''I''E''N. We're good? So I'll restate my question. So would you say that your neighbor, which is 101 Ridgewood Road, has similar challenges from a topographic standpoint?
So did you get my name as well?
I did not.
So I'm Sally O'Brien,
Sorry.
same spelling of O'Brien, Sally, Sally. So, yeah, I would say they are close to the lane on their side. Yeah. So this part of Roland Park was built in the early 1900s, and so I don't know what the rules were then, but the way the houses are set on the lots, they're kind of tucked up against the property line, but our neighbour, so we're tucked up against our neighbour, but they are tucked up against the edge of their property line too. So in fact, we have quite a lot of space between our two houses. They're up against the lane, which you see it's long lane, and we are up against them. And I think as Mr. Doak was explaining, because it's a sort of little mini hill.
Right, I understand that, but.
Yeah, and they're elevated from the street like we are.
Sure. So what we're trying to find out is what's the unique situation for your property that allows this variance to occur? So that's the challenge right now. So if you're saying that it's a topographic change or something that's different between your lot and any other lot.
I've testified hundreds of times in Cromwell v. Ward, and I understand uniqueness, sir. And this has it because where say number 101 is more centered in the lot would be and is close to the lane to the east We, on the other hand, are not centered on the lot. We are pushed to the east because of the topography difference between Hollywood Lane and the side of our house.
Yeah.
And if you, looking at the petitioner's exhibit, the photographs, number I, you'll see that the distance from the hedgerow, which is approximately the property line, to the adjoining house, which is 101, you'll see the large setback to that property line.
Yeah, the aerial shows it better.
Also, you can look at
That shows it better.
petitioner's exhibit, the aerial photograph as well, and you can see that depicted.
I don't know if it's helpful, but if you look at Hollywood Lane, there's actually a retaining wall along that lane that sort of butts up to hold up, as it were, the land where our house is. So that's why I think the house was pushed, when they built it, towards the edge of the property line. Isn't the variance just for a foot? It's a little bit.
And this with the current setbacks, are 15 foot?
15?
Well, that's the required setback is 15.
And the request is for 8.
Yes.
Yes, sir. That's the minimum we could have for this entrance, side entrance. That would still allow us the walkway around it between the proposed enclosure and the mature shrubbery along the property line.
The enclosure is going to be used as a mudroom.
Well, not even that. Someone to put boots and hang coats.
It's a mudroom.
Yeah, that sounds fancy.
Trying.
My colleague has a more particular background in architecture than I do. We all have our talents, right?
Yes, sir.
And so,
I guess I'm just trying to understand your explanation of unique in this condition. I understand that the house is located on the site specifically because of potentially some topographic challenges, but the actual addition that you're requesting, I don't see how that gets affected. That's my concern. I'm trying to find something, whether it's through aerials or another means and methods of saying that this is acceptable, but that's my challenge, and I'm hoping my colleagues here can find something I'm not seeing.
May I add something else,
Yes,
please? Because they had nothing to do with, of course, the positioning of the house. It was done at a time when there was not setbacks, okay? And we're left with a 15-foot entrance there. This is the only place that we can have this entrance, of course, and we've gone to great lengths to design it in keeping with the house, in keeping with the neighborhood design, so it is not, anything that would be detrimental to the adjoiner. So I don't see how we would be able to lessen this, and we feel that the uniqueness of the positioning of the house, different from the others in the locale with the similar lots, they don't have.
if the other homes within the area wish to add the addition that you're seeking to add, they would be able to do so within the bulk regulations without a variance?
Most likely, sir. I can't speak for all of them. I am a surveyor, but I can't speak for them. But they would have much more opportunity because how their houses are positioned and centered on the lots where ours is not.
Is that me? Is it somebody else? Okay, I understand. I'm going to interrupt you.
I can understand that. If you look at all the surroundings, we can look deliberate. There's plenty more setback situations here. They're clearly up against their property line in that situation.
Anything else in support?
No, I don't believe so, sir.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. So, as the, which house? There. And they're up against.
Yeah, so this is their 15-foot setback right there, and they're looking to do the addition right here, which would require that 8-foot setback. You can see this adjacent property, they have plenty of space between their setbacks. And I would equally say that on the other side, they have plenty of space on their setbacks, right? So if we're comparing this property to that property. Now, this building right here, this house right here was positioned in that position because of the topographic changes between Hollywood and Ridgewood. So there was a topographical challenge, I understand. So I can understand that as well.
Right.
Yeah, can we have the discussion in an audible form?
Yes, I can
Thanks.
explain that. So I was explaining to Mr. Chair that everything that, sir, you were explaining, due to the topography of what's happening on Hollywood and also on Ridgewood, that the position of the home is in fact pushed inland to the site.
Yes, sir.
And because of that, you're up against the property line, which your adjacent properties and adjacent owners do not have that challenge. There seems to be plenty of space between the setbacks and the structures on other properties in the area. So what you're saying is that what had to happen is that your building was constructed, your house was constructed at the very minimum setback of the time, which was 15
Yes,
foot.
sir.
So in order to do what you guys are requesting to do, you need to provide that 8-foot variance or relief of, 4-foot relief is what they're looking to get, right?
No, they need, so 15 feet is required, and that's where the house is currently. They're proposing an 8-foot setback, meaning they need a 7-foot variance.
7-foot variance, correct. So I was just explaining to our chair here those details.
And it was helpful.
That's what I'm here for.
You could make David go through the findings of facts.
That'd be very
as he's-
challenging, and that.
Let's not go too far, shall we? Says David. Perish the thought. That's coming, not today. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're here on a request for a variance to the bulk regulations for a minimum interior side yard setback from 15 feet required, 8 feet is proposed, with a 7-foot variance is requested. The first question we have to, or finding we have to make is whether or not the conditions on which the application is based, whether those conditions are unique to the property for which the variance is sought. And what was just being explained, as a gentleman explained to the board, is that, yeah, because of the conditions of the topographical conditions, which required the house to be built where it is to begin with, not on a hill. We don't teeter houses on a hill and let part of it hang off. It needed to be pushed over towards the property line. So if you ever wanted to or needed to have an addition on that side, you're already faced with far less space to do so. And certainly can't do it within the current bulk regulations. You didn't create the property topography. You bought the property as is, it's already built. So I do find that the property is unique for the reasons my colleague explained in the record. Because of the particular shape or topographical condition, there'd be a practical difficulty in meeting the bulk regulations and erecting this small enclosure, small relatively speaking in relation to the rest of the house. And that practical difficulty is not your fault because it's the way the house was built that required it to be pushed over, that required you to come to us. So the practical difficulty, I believe, is caused by the code and not by any intentional or unintentional action of you, of the applicant. There's no evidence in the record that the purpose of the variance is based exclusively on a desire to increase the value or income potential of the property. It's to get out from the rain, put down dirty boots, and then walk into your clean kitchen, right? Will the variance be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property? There's no evidence in the record that that is the case. There is testimony in the record that other neighbors were consulted about the project and were in agreement with it and had no objection. Is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code? I believe it is. There's no evidence that it's violative of any other urban renewal plan or master plan or historical or architectural preservation condition. And will the variance otherwise be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare? I think that's a clear no. And nobody is impacted except somebody who wants to run their dirty boots through your house. So with those findings, I'm a yes for the application.
I'm also a yes.
I can be a yes.
I'm also yes, thank you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate your help. It's hard to tell. Thanks, though. Appreciate that. Case number 2024-054, 517 South Wolf Street, Mary Bickford.
These are the tough ones.
Welcome, folks. This is a request to construct an addition atop the existing rear garage, requiring variances to bulk regulations. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Let's get the parties sworn, please.
With your permission, Ms. Bickford has asked me to answer some of her questions for her, so if I should be
Been
sworn
very
in as
involved with the
well.
process all along, so.
No problem.
Do you swear or affirm that the following perjury the answers that you give in statement say that you speak the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Since both of you have spoken, ma'am, can I give you
Mary Bickford, Mary S. Bickford. Okay, and Stephen, you don't have your name.
Stephen with a V, Lampredi, Lamp, and then Redi.
All right, I'll hear from staff and planning.
Okay, as you already noted, the request is to construct an addition atop an existing rear garage. Maximum height, 15 feet is allowed for accessory structures, 28 feet is proposed to be a 13-foot variance for the height. Rear yard, 25 feet is required, 0 feet is proposed, it's set on the rear lot line, I believe, so 25-foot variance. And interior side yard, 15 feet on each side, 0 feet proposed to be a 15-foot variance. The property is zoned R8. The property was granted this, I think, same approval under a previous resolution under the consent docket. That resolution has expired after not being extended and the year ran. It is located in a CHAP district. I believe they've gone through the CHAP process already. And that's all I will say for now.
So for planning, our concern was over the description in the application materials of an accessory art studio, and I exchanged a few emails with the applicants to clarify that so long as it's for personal use and it's not a home occupation or a full commercial venture, I don't object to the use of it. It is in a local historic district, so any exterior changes would need to be approved by our CHAP folks. And then just from a general urban design standpoint, so this is now a through lot that's been consolidated from 2 or 3 separate properties. So the rear of the property is South Chapel Street. So the east side of South Chapel Street is fronted on by Alley Street homes. Some of the properties on the west side are also homes. Other are utility uses like small garages behind, I think it's a funeral home at the other end of the block, and things of that nature. So for the scale and massing that's proposed, it would not be any different than the homes in that same vicinity off of South Chapel Street. And for the adjacent properties, this would be up against, there's no existing windows. So I don't think as an urban design principle, it would impact anybody. And so we have no opposition so long as this is for personal use alone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, want to tell us about your project?
Oh, all right. Want me to
Well, I'll
describe
just
it?
start. I've lived in my house for 29 years and was able to about 15 years ago buy the 2 lots behind my property. So it's all combined, goes from Wolf to Chapel Street. I was a realtor for 30 years. I've retired. I have a degree from Maryland Institute of Art. I didn't want to be a starving artist, so I sold real estate. And now I'm back to my passion. I paint. I do commissions for people. I put things in other people's galleries. This property will not have water. So it's because there's only 1 water meter per lot, and that's to the front. So, no, it's for my personal use and storage of my work and my supplies.
And so you're not intending to turn it into a dwelling unit?
Not at all.
To do without water access?
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you have the drawings there. If you want me to comment on any of them, I will. I'll also note that the CHAP has approved the project.
Okay. Well, tell us about and it may be here in your application.
I'm sorry.
Tell us about the uniqueness of this particular property. I've heard that obviously it's consolidated lots at this point.
Yes.
Right. Well, if you have the same documents I have in front of me on page 7, you can see the site plan. And so Mary's house is 517 South Wall, built in 1794. It's not a spacious house, but it's a historically significant one. And then she has the large lot that goes all the way to South Chapel Street. And there's a dilapidated garage there currently, and she wants to transform into a workable space for herself. And it's designed to harmonize with the other structures on the alley street. So it'll become, and if we go back to page, you can go back to page 4, and that shows the front and back elevations of her structure. It shows how it sits atop the garage that's extant. The extant garage, part of it's going to be demolished, but the top 3 feet will be taken off, and then this will be built on top. So from the Chapel Street side, it looks very much like the other buildings on Chapel Street, with the difference that it has a garage on the first level and a balcony on the second level, and then it has a little old-fashioned roof on it. The only main access to this structure is on the other end, which we can see in the other smaller drawing, which has a porch and a door, and that faces Mary's back door. It faces her garden. And so if you're walking down Chapel Street, it's kind of hard to see anywhere to even walk in, but it harmonizes well, I think, with the rest of the units there.
Do you want to mention about Jim Shetler, the architect?
Yeah, the architect is Jim Shetler. He could not be here today. I'm not an architect nor a lawyer, but Jim has guided this project from an earlier version, which was approved
Until the permit.
with a provision on that. Anyway, Mary, when the first zoning appeal was approved, Mary then realized that first of all, her current architect then had family issues and couldn't follow through with the project, and also that the project didn't reflect her actual desires. So she got a new architect, and this is the result. It's the studio that she'll have consists of 1 full floor and a loft, and it's quite narrow. It's about 9.5 feet wide inside, and it has a little stairway going up And the garage can still be used as a garage, but maybe used as a garage or just for storage.
So it would be easy to just go back to your last application to make all the findings, including uniqueness, except we weren't doing that then. There was a consent docket where you didn't have to walk through those findings.
Well, we also did not, because of the confusion and whatnot, the embroiling ourselves in the new design, the deadline passed for renewal.
And that's fine, and
so
I'm not terribly
we just
concerned
came
about
out and said,
that.
well, let's just reapply.
But it's a different process now.
Hmm.
The process before was, nobody's opposing it, let's stamp it, go. Today, doesn't matter if anybody's opposing it, we need to make the factual findings to be sure that they meet the requirements for a variance, which is supposed to be given sparingly. And so, you mentioned the property was built in 1794, it's very old. But in the application, there wasn't, other than the desire to build an art studio, there wasn't a statement of justification as to the uniqueness of this particular property. And so all I'm looking for is, why is this different or falls outside the bulk regulations? Why you should get relief from the bulk regulations to perform this new construction. There may be many, given how old the property is. I just don't know what they are, because it's not in the application. That's why I'm asking.
Well, this is a new question that we haven't pondered, really.
It's the primary question for a variance today.
Right.
And, I mean, you're welcome to take some time to work on that, unless anybody else up here has some information that could assist, because we have to make those findings yay or nay. If there's no uniqueness, the variance can't go forward, which again is a different standard than when you were here before, because nobody went through this analysis. Now we have to. And so we're looking for the applicant to tell us about the uniqueness of the property, the design, the structure, any of those, any condition about the property which you believe would entitle you to relief from the required bulk regulations, the height that you're seeking, everything else.
But the garage is not that
Do
old.
you-
That
No,
doesn't matter.
no,
That's not
the-
what you're saying.
And let me suggest, unless you're seeking to start building in a few weeks, you can take some time and consider that question, because we will need to make a finding as to uniqueness or not. Right now, we can't make that determination, at least I can't, based on the record in front of us and what you're telling us about the property.
All right, I'll take a stab at it.
Hang on a second. Mr. Tiso, is there something you want to offer?
Yeah, just trying to answer that question for you. I'm looking at City View, which is an online interactive map tool. So I had mentioned earlier that this was a property that was composed of 3 lots that were
Yes, sir.
consolidated. Aside from the funeral home at the corner of Wolf and Eastern, which is also assembled properties, this is the only through lot that goes spanning from Wolf back to South Chapel. So in essence, what was a front lot line on South Chapel Street is now a rear lot line. So if that had not been consolidated, and if this was rebuilt or newly built or added to become a home, the massing would be unremarkable. So I think for that reason, it's different than all the other properties, with the exception of the much larger funeral home at the other end of the block.
Got it. Thank you. Question's been answered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, it's the only through lot
It is the only through lot,
Yeah.
yes.
in the area, which is impactful for all of the, for all of the requested variances.
When I purchased it, it was the brick garage, and then there was a parking pad, and it was two metal garages used by Ostrowski's Polish hot dogs over on Washington Street. So,
Okay, well, I think I'm good.
Oh,
oh,
good.
Any questions for the applicants? No? All right, let's see if we can run this one. Are the conditions on which the application is based unique to the property for which the variance is sought? And there are multiple variances here. And I believe the answer to that is yes. We appreciate the additional testimony and information from Mr. Tiso, which explained the consolidation of the properties and the resulting through lot, which is the only through lot in the area, which makes it unique as against all other properties in the area. I'm sure there's probably some additional ones, given the age of the property and other things, but we just needed me at least to make that finding.
thank you.
Because of the particular physical surrounding shape, conditions, through lot presents an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty in doing what it is you're seeking to do. But that unnecessary hardship is not your fault. It's the condition of the property that gives rise to that. It requires you to get these or seek these variances. And you'd otherwise be unreasonably precluded from utilizing the space for your personal use as you'd like to do in terms of your art studio, so you can continue to place your projects in other people's galleries and things like that. Again, as I mentioned, is the unnecessary hardship, practical difficulty caused by the code? Yes, it is. Not by you. Not by any intentional action or inaction of you. Is the purpose of the variance based exclusively on a desire to increase the value or income potential of the property? Your testimony is no, it's for your personal use, to allow you the space to do that and for storage, and to make effective use of your property. Will the variance be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity, or substantially diminish and impair property values in the neighborhood? There's no evidence in the record to that effect, and I don't believe that there would be a yes to that question. And is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the city code? I believe it is. And will the variance otherwise be detrimental to or endanger public health, safety, or welfare? And there's no evidence in the record to that effect. So, based on the record before us, talking to my fellow board members here, I'm a yes, because I think it meets all the requirements for a variance.
I'm also yes.
Also, yes.
I'm a yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, how many more cases have we got here? You know what? I need to go off the record for about 5 minutes. I'm going to go off the record. Just take a brief break and we'll be back.
Off the record at 2:47.
Sit tight, thank you. Okay, going back on the record.
Okay, we are back on the record at 2:55.
All right, calling case number 2024-055, 2300 Whittier Avenue. Robert Taylor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Are you Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Welcome, sir. This is a request to use the premises as a multifamily dwelling with 3 dwelling units requiring minimum lot area and off-street parking variances, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Let's get witness sworn, please.
You stand right there again. Do you swear or affirm and tell for who you have a statement saying that the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. I'll hear from staff and planning.
All right, so to make it a little simpler for the board, it's actually, the last legal use is 3 dwelling units.
Oh, confirmation.
So it was submitted as a variance, but it's actually a request for confirmation of nonconforming density, which is
Great.
a little easier for the board to work with, I think.
Well, we like easier, that's for sure.
The Yeah, like I said, the last legal use is 3 dwelling units. It had been used as a multifamily dwelling for many years per the zoning card that we have.
Okay.
So from planning's perspective, and just to elucidate for the crowd, our prior zoning code had a policy trigger in it that if there was a vacancy and this property did have a vacant housing notice issued to it, that it would administratively be reset to single-family dwelling status. But the current code does not have that provision in it. So the last authorized use was 3 units, and our view, it can continue as such. Even if you were to have to apply the variance standards, it was previously 3 units. The lot area standards under the old code and today's are identical. The parking requirements under the old code and today's code are identical. So whatever standards may have been in place at that time could be duplicated today if those variances should have been necessary. But in any case, we recommend approval of the appeal so the vacant building can be reactivated and put back into productive use.
Thank you, Mr. Tizo. So, Mr. Trailer, our information, based on staff's report, is that this has been utilized as a 3 dwelling unit property for quite some time historically. You intend to use it as 3 dwelling units going forward, is correct?
Yes, trying to renovate it, bring it back to a 3 unit. It's been sitting vacant for some time. The previous owner had lost the vacancy.
Okay. Do you have any information which suggests that the property historically has been anything other than 3 dwelling units?
No.
And I'm only asking in the inverse because I'm trying to make a record here. And you have no intention of doing anything other than utilizing the property as 3 dwelling units going forward, correct?
No.
All right. Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
No questions.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, we were here to effectively, confirm non-conforming density as a 3 dwelling unit property based on the history of the property and the intended use going forward. That's been established. It's been confirmed. It was 3 dwelling units. It's going to be 3 dwelling units. So I'm a yes for this application.
I'm also a yes.
Also yes.
I'm a yes.
Very well. Thank you. Good luck to you. Case number 2024-058, 942 North Gilmore. Ann Powell. Good afternoon. Welcome. This is a request to use the first floor.
Can I have the people in support join me?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Anybody who's here?
Can join. Yeah.
Let's just get everybody sworn in the event that we want to have testimony from them. But first, let me confirm, this is a request to use the first floor of the premises as a healthcare clinic requiring a use variance, correct?
Correct. I also have 3 more letters of support that I would like to enter into record.
Okay, and hang on one second. Okay. It's the word variance. It's requiring conditional use, usually a healthcare clinic requiring conditional use, not a variance issue.
We'll get into it in a
Okay,
second.
all right.
It's a little bit of a unique one.
A hybrid, yeah, just like a car. Okay. Let's get the reports and then we can accept any additional information that you have. But let's get them sworn first. Thank you.
Everybody raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm on the testimony the record that the answers that you give and statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do. Thank you. Ma'am, since you've spoken, can you state and spell, are you Ms. Powell?
I'm Ann Powell.
Okay.
All right, I'll hear from staff and planning.
Okay, so yeah, this one is an interesting one. So the original request, I believe, that we got was to use the first floor of the premises as an office, which it's an R8 zoning district, so an office is allowable under neighborhood commercial. However, there's some back and forth between the applicant and our staff about what kind of office it would be. It seems as though it would be an office that does healthcare. So any kind of mental health counseling is a licensed healthcare provider in the state of Maryland, and that use is under healthcare clinics. So healthcare clinics are not allowed in R8. That's why we ended up with the use variance on the docket, because It was unclear after a lot of back and forth whether the request was for an office or whether under neighborhood commercial or whether it's for a healthcare clinic, which is not allowed in this zoning district. So
There are no exceptions.
there are no exceptions for an actual healthcare clinic use request in R8, not allowed.
Okay.
So if we go back to the office, before we even get to what the office is being used for under neighborhood commercial, the threshold issue for neighborhood commercial is there has to be some kind of historic non-residential use of the property, either in the use permits, or you can tell maybe from the way it was constructed that it has been intended for use as some sort of non-residential use. We don't have that here. Normally, we have it in the zoning cards that show that, you know, it was used in the past for retail sales or something else other than residential use. In this case, we do not have any evidence that this property was ever used for a non-residential use. And I think that planning's memo is consistent with what we found. So in order to even get to the office use, we would need to first say that this property qualifies to be considered as neighborhood commercial establishment, which we do not have evidence of at BMZA.
Got it.
So once we get past that, then we have to make sure if the request is for an office, that it's not for a healthcare clinic and that no healthcare, including mental health care or counseling, would be provided at this location. So that is why I said that this is a quirky case.
Understood. Now I get it. Okay.
So from planning's perspective, we basically came to much the same conclusions, and through a few emails I was able to exchange with Ms. Powell, I wanted to warn her that this is going to be a threshold issue and to be prepared for that. Looking back through the permit information that I have access to from 2003 or 4 moving forward, there were a number of permits that were applied for, expired, applied for, voided, applied, modified, trying to reactivate. There's just a bunch of debris in the permit system, to the best that I could tell, none of which that were actually issued. So there may have been work that was done, there may have been informal use possibly, but I couldn't find any evidence to support anything other than the last authorized use of the property that I see in the records, which was a single-family dwelling. The type of the structure is also not one that we would normally see with prior non-conforming use where there's a chamfered corner, a shop window, something of that nature. So yeah, for all of those reasons, you know, I did alert them to the fact that they'd need to demonstrate some other lawful commercial use that would make it eligible for neighborhood commercial. If they can do that, we would have no objection to an office use, truly an office use as a neighborhood commercial establishment. Healthcare clinic unfortunately goes a step too far and we can't support that. But otherwise, that'll be their case.
Thank you, Mr. Tiso. Okay, so Ms. Powell, with that background in mind, I guess the threshold issue is what evidence, if any, might you have to show us of the historical use of this authorized use for anything other than residential property?
So I'm going to offer a couple of things. So I have with me some neighborhood residents that have been there for a very long time. So we're going to call them, you know, credible witnesses. And then I also have the tenant here who can speak to the use in further detail. So I want to enter 3 more letters of community support, including one from Senator Corey McRae. So I think we have a total now of 13 letters of support and a petition signed, a 4-page petition signed. So I just want that to all be out there that there is a lot of support. Now, on the technical issues, the building is currently form stone. And when you look at the pictures of the exterior, which I've uploaded, I think my theory is that's where the back feed's coming from. I have uploaded, you know, with the zoning, you can look zoning pictures, zoning signage pictures. You can see that it does not look like a residential building and the form stone doesn't look like it's been modified. So, you know, we can assume that it's been kind of looking like that since the 50s or 60s. So it has not been used as a residential and it has been renovated, you know, I can't explain the paper trail. I can just say that it is renovated as a commercial space. It has a commercial grade sprinkler system in it, does not have a residential grade sprinkler system in it.
It has a what?
Commercial grade fire suppression system in it.
Okay.
Black pipe, black iron system, not a residential grade system. And it has a fire department FDC connection, which you can see in one of the pictures. So if you'd like, I can have somebody from the neighborhood speak about what its use was historically.
Okay, and we're just keeping in mind, when you say I can't explain the paper trail is pretty important.
I understand, but I mean, all I can see, like, obviously I haven't gone to zoning and pulled the cards, but what I can only see is what's on property tax records, right?
And does any of that suggest a non-residential use?
It does not, but the project was not even residential when the current owner bought it in 2000. It was never used as residential during the ownership tenure.
Okay, I understand all that. Okay. Would it be fair to say that these letters of support are frankly in support of the project that you're seeking to move forward with?
Very much so.
Okay. But they don't reflect the historical nature of the building or the use of the building?
They do not, but we can enter that with testimony.
Okay. Okay. Call your witnesses.
Okay. Can you identify who you are and
My name is
turn your mic on? So push that little button. There you
Okay,
go.
there it is. My name is Earlene Holland, and good afternoon.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you spell your name?
Earlene. And Holland. Okay. Yes, I lived in the Sandtown, Winchester community all my life. And when the building at 942 Gilmore Street, it used to be a wholesale store. It was called Falters.
I'm sorry, the name again?
Falters.
Falters?
Yes, Falters. I was going to Gilmore Elementary School at that time.
What years would that be?
I'm 68. I'm 68 now.
Okay,
So
let's
that
just say
was back
60 years
then.
ago.
Yeah,
Fair to
right.
say?
All of us.
There's a store called Falters.
Falters Wholesale Candy Store. All of the candy factory. All of the corner stores that had grocery stores
Yes, ma'am.
used Falters as their supplier to buy the wholesale candy, and they sold it in their store for penny candy back in the day.
And
it was always a store.
When, in relation to your elementary school years, when did Falters go out of business? Or no longer operate there?
Oh, let me see when it was.
Sorry to interrupt, but no one from behind this
Yeah, you
group of
can't-
people can speak. So
Oh.
if you'd like to speak, you can come up and testify and give your name, but we can't have people kind of call out stuff. Okay?
Go ahead.
I don't know exactly, what year that Mr. Falters left there. But I think it was before the 80s because my daughter was born in 80.
And was the store still there when your daughter was born?
No, that's what I'm saying. I know it was going before then.
So,
It was the early 80s.
Sir, you're not on the record.
so I do have a couple other people that can add to that, but so let me know.
Okay, have you completed your testimony, ma'am?
Yes, I completed.
So, yeah.
Anyone else you want to call? Because we got to get your name and spelling and all that,
Okay.
so record's got to be clear.
Edward Johnson Sr.
Was he sworn?
Hold on. Is there anybody else in the audience who might be testifying in connection with this matter?
I believe
If you haven't
there
been
is
sworn,
opposition. I believe there's opposition.
okay, well, anybody in support or in opposition. If you haven't been sworn, stand up. You swear these folks, please.
Back in court.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give in the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you. Since you've spoken, sir, can you state your name and spell it?
Edward Johnson Senior. EDWARD. JOHNSON Senior.
Okay.
Okay, and Falter Candy Store closed in the early 80s.
Go ahead, sir.
It was closed in the early 80s.
Falters,
Yes.
it's closed in the early 80s. And did you understand it to be a supply store as well?
Yes, because I used to live right down the street, 934.
934?
Yes, Gilmore Street. I went to the same school my cousin went to.
I can't hear you, sir.
I went to the same school, 119.
Okay. Does anybody know is this Falters or FOL?
Yeah, Falters. FAL.
All right, thank you.
Were you stating that?
No, she said.
In fairness, I set that up because I yelled it out.
Okay.
So let's say Miss Earlene, let's say she provided that testimony. She confirmed it. Okay. And did anything else, sir, to your knowledge or recollection, operate in that space after Falters, between then and now?
No.
No? So-
So I have
Hold on,
another
sir.
person that, yeah.
Hold on. Are you in opposition?
No.
You're not?
He has
Okay, so,
additional property information.
okay. I'll leave that to you to identify.
So that's what you were, okay, so we're going to pass the mic back.
Or you can come up, or you know what, you can stand there as well. All the mics work.
Okay, my name,
Hold on. Put that mic back on the table so we don't lose it. You can stand over there and talk into that one.
You have
the
to
button
turn it on, I
Make
turned
sure
it
it's
off.
green.
And we need to get your name and spell it.
Okay, my name is Sean, SHAWN. Last name Whiting, WHITING.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, in the 1980s, after Falter had the place 942 North Gilmore Street, my stepfather Jesse Goolsby had purchased the property, and he used it just for like storage, storage like he was gonna sell little fruit, vegetables, commercial or whatever it is. But then the other owners purchased it. It was a commercial building ever since I was a kid. And I'm 58 years old, and I grew up in the community, been in there all my life. And so after Falter sold it, he either purchased it from Falter or he had it. So
Okay. And he used it as a storage facility?
storage, like selling fruit, vegetables, and stuff like that. It was never like could be residential area, residential.
Did he have a
area.
use permit to do that?
I don't recall, but I know he used it for storage and selling fruit, vegetables.
Okay. Obviously, the reason I'm asking is because we're looking for authorized uses. That's what we have to go by. And Falters.
He's after Falter.
Okay, I get that. Does anybody know whether or not Falters was operating legally as a supply?
No, not at all.
We was little kids.
I know that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want anybody to shout it out. Let me ask you. Do you know what? Give me a minute.
Do I know Falter? Yeah, my stepfather had a store.
No, I'm not asking whether they had a store, whether they were selling things. My question is more specific than that. My question is whether or not you know that they were lawfully and legally authorized to run a store.
No, not at all, because he had receipts and everything. He had a store in the next block in the 1400 block of Motor Street, and he used to purchase candies and everything from there. All the stores in the community.
You can purchase. You recognize you can purchase.
No, we have a
any-
receipt.
Hold on. You can purchase anything from anybody. They can give you a receipt. That doesn't mean they've legally put it together and had all their I's dotted and T's crossed. That's what I'm asking. I appreciate what you're telling me, and that may be helpful and it may carry the day. But I'm just asking, as a point of fact, whether you know or have some knowledge that there was compliance with the legal requirements.
I'm gonna say this: it's nowhere possible that it was illegal because everybody purchased. They had a big sign purchased up there for this company, and everybody purchased.
A lot
Every
of people
store.
purchased alcohol in 1922.
No, not from there. It's nowhere possible because you have to pay taxes and
All right.
everything.
I got it. I got you. Anything else, sir?
No.
Okay. Did your father's, your uncle, who was it?
My stepfather, my little brother father.
Did he operate under a trade name?
I know Jesse Goolsby, and he paid taxes and everything down. He had a store.
Did his store have a name like Goolsby's or something?
No, the block down. The block down that he had.
I want to know about this property.
I don't recall that. I just know he had it.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else?
I think on use, we don't have anything else to add on the historical use. Just, it's never been residential, nor does the architecture suggest it.
Okay.
Now we can.
We have to make a determination.
I know.
Whether that would satisfy that threshold.
Yeah. There's nowhere to do that. Yeah, and then I think that the second point, I just want to make sure procedurally that because it's unconventional. So the second piece is that I think it would, the applicant, the tenant would really like to talk through what the place is going to be used for.
That's fine. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
With regard to the determination of whether or not there was a non-residential use, which is I guess, again, a threshold issue, we have to make that determination. Respectfully, it doesn't matter what we go to unless we can clear that hurdle.
Right, so it says in the code, just reading from it, neighborhood commercial establishment is a non-residential use within a residential or office residential zoning district in a structure that, and I'm just going to skip to number 2, has received prior zoning approval for a non-residential use as evidenced by permits, construction, or historical evidence of lawful non-residential use.
It seems to me that the presence of a commercial fire suppression system indicates that there must have been some sort of prior approval, non-residential use approval, in order to get that fire suppression system installed and permitted, assuming it was permitted.
That's right.
We also know that the city's records aren't the best. So I think that having, testimony from members of this community who have lived here for a long time, to me satisfies this historical evidence piece to show that there's been a non-commercial use here in this building for quite a long time. Non-residential use in this building for quite a long time.
And that standard is, we had a preponderance of the evidence standard, basically, 51%. Anything else you want to add?
I can add to that if that's acceptable for identifying it as a non-residential use.
It's up to you what's acceptable.
Per what the zoning code explains it as. There is evidence of a potential, I don't know if it's acceptable or ADA compliant, but there is a ramp that was installed at some point that's different than the rest of the properties along the block there, which typically, in my experience, is also an identification of a commercial use potentially at some point. And it's a big question mark still, regardless, right? So, I will add that.
Okay, that's
comment to
helpful.
it.
That's helpful. And again, if we, anything from you, Vic?
I would add to that there's a second means of egress on the rear of the building that is across a roof. I'm not going to argue that's code compliant, but it has an exit sign posted on it. So this is the level that, we aren't talking about use on the upper floors, but I'm just saying, it certainly suggests that it's been a commercial use. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, we could accept documents, we can accept testimony, personal knowledge, right, based upon personal knowledge. And so it's for the, board to determine whether or not, by a preponderance of the evidence, it's more likely than not that there was a legitimate non-residential use associated with the property. I think I agree with my colleagues that those indicia of, commercial grade, fire suppression system, coupled with ramps, suggests more likely than not that you don't go and do that unless you have to. Typically.
Mr. Fields?
Hold on, ma'am. So I'm going to say that they met the threshold for establishing a legitimate, and legal and authorized non-residential use for the property as a threshold issue. Do we need to agree on that? Well, it doesn't have to be unanimous.
Sounds like you have agreement on that.
Well, I haven't
Unless
heard
Mr.
from
Clark
Victor.
disagrees.
He's still looking at it.
I can agree with that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So we'll go with that now. We can address the second issue of what's going to be there. Tell us about that.
Okay, so I'm going to have the tenant answer that question, and she will introduce herself.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Chantel Green. Shontel. Last name Green, Greene.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. So basically, I think it's getting construed as being a mental health clinic. It is actually 4 parts to this business, and that is what Corey actually wrote the letter about, because I deal with Corey with the other 3 components of my business. So the mental health clinic is actually located on Guilford Road, Guilford Avenue. The other 2 components are located on Harford Road, which is addressed in the letter 5610 and 6920. This particular component will not be a medical clinic. It will be basically individualized therapy, meaning I am a therapist. I speak one-to-one with my clients because of the HIPAA laws, and that my clientele is overpopulated. So to give them privacy, that is why we opened up the 4th location, which is individualized therapy. If you look on my license for 830 Guilford Avenue, you will see that is the OMHC clinic. The location on Guilford Avenue would not even be large enough to have a mental health clinic.
Okay, what is going to take place at 942 North?
Group therapy, individualized and group therapy. So you set appointments and you have one-to-ones. Most of my clients are court-appointed.
That not operating? Go ahead.
Most of my clients come from the court system.
Okay.
So it may be a DWI person that was driving while intoxicated. So I get referrals from the court system. So that's usually one-to-one, one-on-one. Some of them are mental health clients. That's usually one-on-one. Now, 3 days a week, we have
Well, let
group
me stop you there
sessions.
for a second. Whether it's one-on-one or two-on-one, are you not providing clinical services to that individual?
That is located at 830 Guilford Avenue.
Okay, so I'm asking, what's at 942 North Gilmore?
Group individual and group therapy sessions, that's it.
Well, what is therapy?
Therapy is when you talk. You do mental health counseling. You listen to your client and you figure out what they need from listening to them, and you refer them to other disciplines. Like some clients may need medicine, so then I would refer them to 830 Guilford Avenue to see the doctor or the psych NP.
But didn't you just say you're doing individual therapy?
Counseling, individual counseling. There's no
Well, is that-
medication.
let me suggest the distinction.
Okay.
Is what you're seeking to do more like intake at 942, or you're actually providing therapeutic services to them at 942?
When you say therapeutic service, I'm doing one-to-one counseling with this client. That's it.
Okay, but you got to tell me what your one-to-one counseling is.
Okay, it depends.
What it contemplates.
Okay, so you're being sent in for DWI.
Okay.
You're court ordered to see me. 12 weeks. So you're going to come in for 45 minutes, 4 days a week. And we just talk about your progress. At the end of the 12 weeks, I write the judge a notice telling them the patient's progress.
Okay, stop. So they were sent to you for treatment, right?
Yes,
That treatment, they're coming in to 942 North Gilmore one-on-one to get that treatment, right?
no, just therapy. The treatment, if they need medication.
I think that's what we're confusing. it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that he
Treatment
is,
doesn't necessarily mean that you're prescribing
Medication.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I'm going to say treatment. I agree with
This
you.
is sort of a behavioral health counseling. This is a
Counseling.
form of treatment.
It's a,
Right.
And it will be given
True,
by you.
because they
a
wouldn't be
licensed
coming to
healthcare practitioner.
942.
Exactly,
Okay.
Right, and so you're fulfilling that court requirement
exactly.
by providing those services.
Yes.
But you're providing treatment in providing those services,
Yes,
correct?
that's true.
Whether you dispense medication or prescribe it or
Exactly.
not, right?
Right.
That to me is treatment, and that is a clinic.
Okay.
Whether or not there are 20 people in your clinic or one person. But that's the intent of 942 North Gilmore, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
the way you put it.
Group therapy could be fine though, could it? That's more like peer counseling?
There you go.
Well, I'm
Peers.
asking the question. Is that
I think that there is a weird thing in the definition of healthcare clinic because it does say individuals. But, I mean, if you have more than one individual in a group, okay, I'll read the definition. You have it in front of you. Healthcare clinic is a facility for the examination and treatment of individuals on an outpatient basis by one or more physicians, dentists, chiropractors, physical therapists, or other licensed healthcare practitioners. This is a long-standing tension here between the definition of office and the definition of healthcare clinic. And I think I'm not casting aspersions on anybody in particular. I think a lot of people come in and ask for office, and sometimes they're even directed by zoning administration to fill out an application for office because it's easier to get an office use than it is to get a healthcare clinic use. But if they are examining and treating individuals on an outpatient basis by a physician or any licensed healthcare practitioner, which could include a mental health counselor, someone who's not a medical doctor, then the board will have to decide, does that fall under this definition of healthcare clinic? I'm not making that conclusion, that's for the board, but it seems like a fairly straightforward definition.
will there be any back office sort of services done at this location?
Well, then you would have to go to 830 Guilford Avenue.
you'll have a receptionist.
I had this problem in Baltimore County. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's so many parts to mental health.
Sure.
But the
And the
specific-
part that we are carving out for 942 North Gilmore is what precisely is going to be taking place there.
Okay.
And what you've described, what you've testified to, is mental health counseling by someone who's licensed to provide that, right?
Which makes it.
Right.
Correct? With medication or not.
Right.
That's the therapy. And in fact, it's reinforced by the fact that what is taking place there is fulfilling the obligation or the requirement that the patient go someplace and receive that treatment, right?
Yeah, kind of, yes.
Well, that's what you said.
Yeah, but if you look at my state license, it's spelled out OMHC, that's the clinic portion. Individual group counseling, that's another license.
Okay,
So
you
they
can have a
kinda-
clinic, right? You can have
Right.
a clinic where you have people coming through and receiving whatever you're doing, the treatment that you're performing at the clinic, and you can have it individualized treatment
True.
in a location, but nevertheless, it's still treatment. Because why is the person being ordered to go there? It's not just to give information for intake, it's to be treated. And you're
True.
going to sign off on that treatment, you're going to bill for that treatment, right?
Yes.
So I think I'm a registered architect, and I think that for me, I understand that zoning code and building code are different places, but when you think about, in the building code, it would definitely be an office use, right?
But it's, you could do it in a phone booth. So what we're talking about is, what are you doing? And if what you're doing is treatment, that's falls in the definition, I believe, of a healthcare clinic, which is not allowed in R8. That's why I'm drilling down on what's actually taking place when you walk into 942 North Gilmore. Because there are multiple, it's multifaceted mental health care, right? You can have a kind of care that's being provided in a clinical setting. I don't know what's happening in the clinic, but what we're interested in is what's happening here at Gilmore. And if patients are coming in for individualized therapy, you're treating them, right?
No, I'm making a determination of what they need, and then I send a referral to where they need to go.
But then
So
you
they get
say they come to you there and the court will order them to go 15 sessions.
Right.
Are they going to come 15 sessions to 942 North Gilmore?
It depends. Like, they may
On what?
need, because they may need medication. They may need to see
Stop.
a
So if they need
therapist.
medication, you'll send them somewhere else.
8:30
If they
Guilford
just
Avenue.
need counseling and discussion, they'll stay there, right?
A lot of times, it's never that simple, though, honestly.
Will you be providing individualized therapy to patients at 942 North Gilmore?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know, I think.
Okay.
Okay. If you were at 942 Gilmore saying, prior to you starting this regimen of treatment, I need you to visit our office at 942 North Gilmore. Bring me all of your medications, all of it, provide all that. So we'll input it into the system and we'll be in touch with what we then do with you. But if you're going to tell them to come back and we're going to have 8 sessions at 942 North Gilmore, it's not 8 sessions of intake, it's 8 sessions of therapy. So you're providing health care, right? If that were the case. And if you're providing health care under that scenario, you're operating as a healthcare clinic under the definition that the code provides. And so the code is making a distinction between, frankly, what I understand it to be administrative things, organizing the office. This is where we keep our records for the patients who are undergoing this type of therapy. This is where we keep this. And that's where it is. It's an organization type thing. Or this is where we ask folks to send in the calls, the court can call to get information on our roster of clients. But if 942 is where you go to get your treatment, how is that not a clinic? Just because it's one-on-one doesn't negate it being a clinic.
Because the state tells us different. That's why they want offices where they can have one-to-one therapy. That's why they said we needed another location. We are licensed for a clinic, which is the OMHC.
Well, I think the answer is the office can't be at 942 North Gilmore.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the state is mandating that you have another office to do one-on-one therapy, the state is saying you need an office to provide treatment. And if you're providing treatment, I go back to this unless somebody can disabuse me of this notion, if you're providing treatment, you are operating as a clinic.
I think it sounds like we're getting hung up on different agencies' definitions of the term
And I don't want to.
clinic. Yeah.
I don't want to.
And so the zoning code will use a term like healthcare clinic, and it may not match up with what the state says is
Sure.
a healthcare clinic. But that's the term that we use, that's the term that was decided at whatever, maybe it was introduced for Transform, maybe it was there before. But just because it may not be a clinic under the state definition, doesn't mean it's not a healthcare clinic for our purposes.
For our purposes, and I'm trying to focus on
defined
our
it.
purpose.
In the code in a certain way that might not be consistent with what the state does, but that's okay because we're not a health licensing organization. We're a use licensing organization.
Thank God we're not. We don't
Yeah, 'cause it's
screw that up.
confusing.
But so for purposes of what the zoning code means in terms of a healthcare clinic, what are you doing? You're providing treatment of some sort. If you're providing treatment, whether the state told you to go here, here, or here, if you're going to provide treatment here, unfortunately, the zoning code precludes that happening in an R8
I think what's interesting, though, is that there are uses that are more intensive, like hospitals, which are permitted in R8s.
There are a lot of interesting things about the zoning
Yeah,
code.
trust me, we get it.
Yeah, I mean, because I think I highlighted them in the application because there were a bunch of, uses that are much more intensive.
And we're not here to dispute the extent of the use, the intensity of the use. It's the use, period, and and whether or not it meets the definition of a clinic. I mean, we've certainly had this issue before where, folks are trying to parse out, and we're trying to parse out whether or not you're doing a solely you're operating an office, as we understand traditional definition of an office, versus performing some treatment. Not saying you can't have an office here, but you can't have a clinic here. So you got to decide what you want to do at 942 North Gilmore.
So what about the Future Care home, Sandtown, Winchester Future Care that's right across the street on the corner?
Is that an R8?
That's a whole
Yeah,
nursing
yeah.
home with 160 beds.
Yes.
Okay, so nursing homes would be under residential care facility, which are
Okay.
allowable by conditional use in residential zoning districts.
That's crazy.
That's the
I
nature of the code. That's why that's why we're going through this
That's what makes it so
exercise.
challenging, yeah.
Yeah, it's not necessarily fair or consistent, but
Not intuitive, and
It's-
so
yeah.
feel free to reach out to your council person to ask them what they can do to change the code, but the board has to work with what is currently in the code. Sometimes it's not what you would expect.
Yeah, it's crazy.
so is there anything else you want to tell me about what's happening at 942 Gilmore? You stand by your testimony, correct?
You know I ain't fooling with you.
No, as to what it is you intend to do.
I mean, I'm telling you, I know what I'm licensed for. I do have a clinic, which is the third component.
No, well, and you perform services at the clinic, and what you told us.
Yeah, at my
is you will be
clinic, I do
performing
830
services-
Guilford Avenue.
Right, and you also told us that you will be performing services at 942 North Gilmore, right?
Therapy.
Right, okay,
So
all right.
I think it was important that we established that there has been historical evidence that there is a commercial use at this location. So is there a way that because this property owner has this property and is not residential, and so can that decision be reflected in the official zoning record somehow as a consequence of
Well,
this?
we'll have to write up whatever the result is here.
We can put that in the resolution, that the board found that there is some historical evidence of non-residential use of this property, and that will go in the resolution that gets issued. And, there are a set of neighborhood commercial uses, obviously, that could be applied for, in separate appeals in the future.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. I just thought that was an important outcome.
We don't know what you're going to do with it, but so it may be important for you, given
Maybe
what you can do
some
thereafter. So-
Retail goods establishments with non-alcoholic beverage sales? Or I'm reading from the code. I'm just
We'll-
kidding.
We'll leave that offline for you all to figure out.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else from you at this point? Any other presentation you'd like to make on this issue?
I mean, I think that what is clear is that I was very impressed by the amount of neighborhood support that was generated for this, because the truth is that these services being provided inside the
Needed.
R8 district is desperately needed. And that's where I understand that it's incongruent and that you, as a CHAP commissioner, understand how far you can go. You know, it's not clear from making the initial application whether you can, how much latitude the board has.
We have none
Yeah.
Okay.
with regard to that issue, which is why we took the time to walk through exactly what it is you're doing or intending to do at 942
We're
North
just
Gilmore.
trying to save a community.
I
I've saved
understand,
many.
I understand.
Google, I saved
And your
so many
partner,
communities.
and your partner in that will be your council person.
He wrote me a letter.
You got to do more.
He
Get some
knows what I
support.
do.
Write
Trust
a
me.
bill. Letter's not gonna do it.
Got to change the
Write a
zoning
bill.
code.
Yeah, we can get
I
it
wish
done.
more council
Yeah.
people would do that
Yeah.
and follow through on what their constituents need.
That's why we
So-
got so much crime.
That's where we are. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, we have to deliberate formally. Okay. So, as we previously discussed, I do believe, I think we came to a consensus, which allowed us to go forward, is that there was evidence by testimony from a historical perspective and visual and documentary evidence consistent that there was a legitimate, authorized, non-residential use of the premises in the past, commercial use, it appears. Fire suppression system, commercial grade, the ramps, perhaps even the exit in the rear. However, given that there is a prohibition on healthcare clinics in the R8 district, based on the testimony presented, it appears clear to me that there is therapy and treatment that intends to be provided that the applicant intends to provide at 942 North Gilmore, whether you call it a clinic or not, whether you dispense medication or not. That treatment, I believe, under the code definition, constitutes a healthcare clinic, if that's what you're going to do. And because there is a prohibition on healthcare clinics in the R8 district, I have to be a no for the application.
I'm also a no.
Has to be a no.
Thank you, folks. Okay. Case number 2024-060, 5405 Todd Avenue. Ms. Allen?
Well, she told you she was a consultant.
This is a request to use premises as a daycare center requiring conditional use approval? Okay. Let's get, anybody else associated with this case? Let's get Ms. Allen sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm under the following perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
I hear from staff and planning.
All right, this is a request to use the premises as a daycare center, which requires conditional use approval in the R3 zoning district. The request is for a daycare center for 35 children, from my notes here. And similar to kind of our normal daycare center questions, the board might want to hear about drop-off and pickup zones, sidewalks, parking, exterior lighting, especially given the fact that it's quite a few more children than we normally see for these kinds of uses.
For planning's report, we note that the BMZ had previously authorized a daycare center at this location for 30 children, and it's case 2013-392, so the increase from 30 to 35 is minimal in our view. This is a single-family, low-density district. There's, I think, a driveway with about 3 cars capacity on the property, and in addition, there's on-street parking available on both sides, and with a prevalence of driveways in this block and on the opposing face, I'm going to guess that there's not a lot of pressure for on-street parking. Should it be necessary, the applicant could, of course, approach the Parking Authority of Baltimore City to ask for a passenger loading zone, but I'm going to guess that that's probably a step too far. Each of the properties has about 50 feet of frontage, so it's most likely not going to be an impact, and so we have no objection to the appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Tissot. Okay, you can have a seat, ma'am. And if you wouldn't mind, press the button so that light, the green light is on.
Yes.
All right. So we know you're intending to operate a daycare center for up to 35 children.
Yes.
Could you tell us about all the things, the drop-off, pickup area, the safety of it, lighting, and all those things?
I'm kind of losing my voice, so hopefully you can hear me. I put in the garage, the driveway. I recently put the driveway in. I have lighting there around, surrounding cameras at the location, all at 4 different angles of the location. I spoke to my neighbors before, and they have no problem with parking. If someone have to park in front of their space, their yard, and have the lights that comes on and off. I also have an escape steps were put in, a ramp that I put up also.
What are the hours you're intending to operate?
6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Are you going to offer any transportation services to your clients, like pick them up by van or anything like that?
I'm thinking about doing that.
Have you operated a daycare center before?
Yes, sir.
How long?
Currently, I have a daycare. I have a daycare in my home, which is located in a different location. But when I get approved, then I will start move the children to this location.
And how many children do you provide daycare for?
8.
And do you have a sizable, how many staff do you intend to provide?
4, including myself.
Did you say you currently,
Currently,
you intend to have certainly lighting around the property? Is there an outdoor area?
yes, I have a fenced-in yard and a playground in the backyard with swings and slides. And also a shed that I have there to protect the toys, like the bikes and all the play materials that I have there.
Okay. Okay. Let's go to market for a second.
We are off the record at 3:49.
I didn't think it's appropriate for us to hear all of it if 4 people aren't here. Sorry, we need to take a break. Slight interruption.
Yeah, I mean, not really, but in the future, I guess. whether or not there's remaining to hear the particular. Is that allowed by the rules? The planning commission?
Their planning commission rules relies on Robert's Rules of Order, which establishes the norm at the beginning. Now, the only difference to that is when they have a zoning action,
Oh, they all have.
charter, well, no, not all of them. They, as a board, as majority.
Yeah, absolutely. Very smart. Yeah.
The rezoning, they are.
Yeah, smart. The WNBA don't pay enough, unfortunately. Yeah.
There have been cases where we did not go forward. We just had six members. Otherwise,
far-reaching appeal.
if they still formed the meeting, people have dropped out for.
That's just not.
As long as they don't see the majority of the members.
She'll learn it. She'll learn the lead. We'll see.
Right.
You're like,
Yeah.
challenge
How many appeals do you get a year?
of our decisions.
Yeah.
Not very many that are not specified. It's 1 year, it's 2 years, it's a lot. CEQ does
Right.
but it's infrequent at best.
We don't get.
But our caseload is also substantially lower
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah.
The impact per case can be higher because they're bigger projects.
Yeah. We just got the,
And yes, we have consent.
right. We just. Well, we just got the overlook from the Court of Special Appeals.
Okay.
The second overlook. High drama was on full day.
Which,
More than requiem.
oh, yeah, that was a PUD previously. So what were they for you for? Was it PUD? Is it conditional use?
All right, going to back on the record.
Okay, we are back on record at 3:55.
Okay.
3:53.
Any other questions for the applicant? Anyone? I think I'm good.
I'm good. All good.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add, ma'am?
I'm eager to start opening up back, welcoming my children.
Good, good. And is there, is your desire to open up a larger daycare a response to demand that you've received?
Yes,
Thanks. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
So we're here on conditional use, operation of a daycare center for up to 35 children. We walked through the conditional use standards, but I would note in the record that, particularly with regard to planning department's record, that the surrounding area evidence is multiple available, parking available, which is often a case when you have a larger daycare center, or even the need for pickup and drop off. There, on the record, it doesn't appear to be a need for that, but the applicant certainly can consider that if there ever becomes a need. Testimony in the record that she's talked to neighbors and they are willingly also would provide the space. So going to the findings required, would the establishment, location, maintenance, or operation of this conditional use be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare? The record does not support that. Rather would support that there is a need and that this particular applicant can fulfill that need. And it would actually be a benefit to the public. The conditional use requested is not precluded by any other law, including any urban renewal plan. The authorization for the use is not contrary to the public interest. Again, it'd be in the public interest to provide the service at the level sought to be provided. And I believe the authorization would be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code, and also under the Schultz v. Pritt standard. On the record before us, I I do not see facts or circumstances that would show that the particular use proposed at this location would have adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with the daycare, irrespective of its location within the zone. So I'm a yes for this application.
I'm also a yes.
I'm a yes.
I'm sorry, I have to ask you a question.
Sure.
I actually just saw this in our notes here, but Ms. Witt, there seems to be that there was a prior case.
Yes, there was a prior case in 2013. I think it was issued in 2014 that gave permission for up to 30 children. So this is adding 5.
And a subsequent case in
2010?
Earlier case.
Oh,
in
that was an
2010.
earlier case in 2010. Okay, so okay, gotcha. All right, I'm good.
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes, thank you. As everything, based with everything that your chair had just explained, I'm also a yes on this. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, case number 2024-062, 913 East Baltimore. Solomon Weld Kurtzos. Hello, sir.
Hello.
This is a request to use the ground floor as a carry-out food shop requiring conditional use approval. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Let's get the witness sworn.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the answers that you give, statements that you make, are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Yeah, you're Mr.
Solomon Weld.
All right, let's hear from staff and planning.
All right, the request is to use the ground floor as a carryout food shop. This is a conditional use in zone C1. Your notes say that there's a parking variance required, but that's, C1 is exempt from parking, so it's just the conditional use for carryout food shop. It is located in a CHAP district, so they're subject to CHAP requirements, but nothing else from me other than that.
Concur, we have no objection, subject to chapter approval.
Very well. Let's see. Sir, tell us about your project.
Well, this is a property that I purchased recently, and the previous owner told me that the first floor has been a carry-out, Chinese carry-out since 1986, from what he told me. But it was shut down because of COVID, and recently I acquired, and I'm trying to renovate it and bring it back to use. And I spoke with the community. I informed them about my plan. They seem very happy with it.
Great, great. What are the proposed hours of the carryout?
Early morning, 6 to 9. I mean, I haven't decided the exact time at this point, but it's
Okay.
going to be daytime.
And I guess I'm more interested in what the closing time is for it, if you have a sense of what that is.
Most likely it's going to be standard around 8 or 9 p.m., but
Okay.
I haven't made any decision
Okay.
yet.
Can you tell us about the lighting conditions that would exist around the property?
It's a small 14 feet wide street, and there is lighting both in front and in the back side.
How about cameras, security cameras? You intend
There
to
is
have
no
any?
camera right now, but once I get approval, I plan to have camera on both sides, on the front and in the back side.
Okay. All right. Street parking. Wait a minute. Why am I reading about parking and,
Well, I mentioned that in my report, that you can ignore that.
okay. Well, you know.
But can I?
You were paying attention.
I wasn't, obviously. Or I heard it and went out the window.
Yeah, if I can make a statement on the parking, I saw the letter, but there is parking on the back side of the building.
I appreciate that, and you don't have to. It's okay.
Okay.
All right. Any questions for the applicant? All right. Thanks, sir.
Great, thank you.
Here on a conditional use for the operation of a carryout, basically a reopening of one that had existed but closed down due to the pandemic. And bring some more life to the area, which is, I think, is always a good thing. Record reflects the intent to have, lighting in front and back, cameras, security cameras as well, to cover the space. Closing time of around 8 or 9. All sounds reasonable. So, again, on the record of the case, on the record before us with the establishment, location, maintenance, or operation of this conditional use, carry out, be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. There's no evidence in the record to that effect. Certainly no opposition has been provided, and there's no reason to infer that there would be any such danger. Would the conditional use be precluded by any other law? No, there's no evidence of that. Is the authorization contrary to the public interest? No, I believe the authorization being requested is in the public interest. Again, providing folks with yet another option of food and other items. Would the authorization be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code? I believe it would. And under the Schultz v. Pritt standard, I don't believe the record demonstrates that there are facts and circumstances that show that this use at this location, or the proposed use at this location, would have adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with the carryout, irrespective of its location within the zone. So I'm a yes for the application.
I'm also a yes.
Quick question. Is the applicant aware of what the chat requirements are?
Are you aware of the CHAP requirements?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, he's been around, I
Then
think.
I'm a yes.
Also, yes.
Very well. Good luck to you.
Do you want to put any conditions on that, or are you just?
I would say lighting, security, as discussed by the applicant. I'm not going to limit him to the closing time at this point, but
Security meaning the cameras?
yes.
Do
Yeah,
the
not
rest
armed
of the board
security.
members agree to those conditions?
Sure, find me.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Case number 2024-064, 948 Bennett Place, Evelyn Deering. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you for your patience. This is a request to use the premises as a multifamily dwelling with 2 dwelling units requiring confirmation of non-conforming density. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you could just swear the witness, please.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Are you from staff and planning?
Right, so the property previously received approval for 2 dwelling units in 1995. I think that's the last use permit that we have in our records, meaning that the last legal use from our perspective is 2 dwelling units, which matches what this applicant is requesting.
So for planning, we have no concerns with continuing the uses, 2 dwelling units. The lot area standard under the prior zoning code is identical for the R8 district under today's code. And for parking, it would be the same as well. It would be an additional parking space would be required for the second unit. In this case, it's a 14-foot wide property. There's a 10-foot rear alley, but it's constrained in its width, and trying to make a turn from a 10-foot alley into a 14-foot property is next to impossible without driving by rail. So in any case, I think whenever it was previously lawfully authorized for 2 dwelling units, whatever standards may have been considered would be equally applicable today. And so we have no objection to its continuance.
Great. Just always ask these questions because I think they're fun. You're intending to utilize the property as 2 dwelling units?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you have, the information that we have, or that the staff of BMZA has, is that the last legal authorized use was as a 2 dwelling unit. Do you have any information contrary to that?
No, sir.
All right. That's all I need to hear. We can deliberate. I'm a yes, because we have established or confirmed the non-conforming density for 2 dwelling units historically and 2 dwelling units going forward. So I'm a yes.
I'm also a yes.
I'm a yes.
So yes.
All right, good luck to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Finally, case number 2024-065, 2737 Dillon Street, Jack Boger. Come on up in company. All right, this is a request to use the ground floor as a personal services establishment, tattoo shop, requiring conditional use approval. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, let's get the witnesses sworn.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm and can only perjure that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask real quick, was it Mr. Boger who just responded?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hear from staff and planning.
Okay, so the request is to use the ground floor as a body art establishment. Again, there's a variance here for one space, but it's C1, so no parking is required. It's just the conditional use for the body art establishment. And yeah, conditional use, that's it.
Yeah, you're hearing that evaluation. It's a conditional use, it's a commercial structure, nothing difficult or remarkable about this that make it any more impactful in this location than any other, so you have no objection.
Thank you so much. Okay. Are you aware of any facts or circumstances that would suggest that your shop would be a detriment to the community?
No.
Quite the opposite, I take it?
Yes.
Is there a demand for your services?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have any idea what the hours you intend to operate?
11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay. I guess I got to get there early. All right. Okay. Very well. Any questions for the applicants? Okay. Here on a conditional use approval for the operation of a personal services establishment, a tattoo shop. No evidence in the record that the establishment location, operation, or maintenance of this use would be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. Even if you don't like tattoos, that's not met by this standard. Conditional use is not precluded by any other law, including the applicable urban renewal plan. The authorization is not contrary to the public interest. It's the kind of authorization that the use is designed for. The authorization would be in harmony, I believe, with the purpose and intent of the code, and I don't see any facts or circumstances that show that this particular use at this location would have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with the operation of a tattoo shop at any other location within the zone. So I'm a yes for this application.
I'm also a yes.
All right.
Also, yes.
One quick question. Why are you leaving Boston Street? I thought that was like capital of body art.
Our lease expired, and we had more community demand a few blocks over.
Okay.
Great.
Simple enough.
Good news. Nowhere to go but up.
I'm a yes.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay.